The, with the with the medical regulations becoming live on April the 1st, vaporizing is now legal where it was sort of in a grey area before. However, the regulations only allow for plant matter for vaporizing. So how are they going to police that?
Well, you'd be surprised. I guess in Colorado, when they legalized it, then they actually had to tag and number and ID every single plant.
Yeah.
Well, somebody might think, well, that's kind of doable. Well, maybe with tomatoes but they call this weed for a reason. And seriously, you can grow like 1,000 of these plants in a very short, small little space. And the concept of having a little RIFD number for every plant is just beyond mind boggling, but they've done it. They have found a way to bean count these little plants. And they know if it's dead, they know when it died, they know when it came to harvest, how much the harvest weight was. And I can tell you, I am so surprised as to how far up your took us the government can stick its head.
But it's the hoops they make everyone jump through to appease the people who are super.
Hello, Michael. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Groovy.
Good.
Conversation. What's up?
Nothing. I wanted to ask you guys some questions, man, just because this thing's so nostalgic. And I just had some stuff because we're gonna get pretty deep in this whole thing over the next 22 hours, right? So it's not gonna be a lot of freestyle time, like after we hit the next morning. So first of all, as a younger man, a younger activist myself, and doing what I do out here, the voices that you guys have, it's all defining, it's all steadfast, like there's no wavering. What advice would you guys give to the modern activists now, with things like technology that they're able to use and just different avenues? How would you suggest that they go about really continuing to bring on the message?
Pace yourself. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
There you go. Here.
I like Gary. Man, little words. He's wearing a sharp ass jacket too. Good.
I'm trying to get my brain around the fact that for about an hour now, it's been date 420, the 20th of April here in Virginia. It's not quite the 20th of April in California yet. It's still 19th of April there. And it's been the 20th of April already for so long that it's actually 4:20 in the afternoon plus in New Zealand, where we're talking right now. Someplace far enough away that the water spins in the opposite direction in the sink when it goes down. Think about that. Get your brain around that.
He brought in the new 420 like it was. He's taking it to all the places. I love it. No, it's weird when you start thinking about time zones. When we were going through that thing last night trying to map this thing, man. And we were talking about time zones, like, man, why do we have so many freaking time zones? Like, I figured if everybody's just really stoned. Yeah, they were really stoned when they, nobody was stoned when they were writing time zones out. They were like, everybody's sober as hell. Like, we just need more of these time zones. All they needed was one guy with a bag of weed in there, and he'd like, hey man, look, why don't we get like 2 time zones, bro? We get like 2, maybe 3, And I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. Like, you guys got any cake? It's like, yeah, we got some cake. It's like, cool, yeah. And then we'd have like 4 time zones and be like, oh, good, Those things really freak me out.
And we're going to be able to do some of it in Spanish and some in French, as we go around the globe.
So Casper, who are you most excited about seeing? Because right now you're at the top of the activist, like you're the star commander, the star lord of actors right now with how long you've had in. Who are you most excited to see out of everybody that's on the list?
The audience. I know that sounds so cheesy. No, I know that sounds so cheesy, but all these other people, I do talk to them and I see them a lot, and they're my family. And it's like you and I talk, and Mike and I talk a lot, and I see these people all the time. But the audience only shows up once in a while. And I just love it when they show up, and because that means that my guest can be heard by more people, and my guests can get their message out. And they can get their message into more ears who can benefit from what they have to say. So I am so thrilled, you know, to be able to see Mary Lynn Matthew pop on, or Paul Stanford show up, or Mark Henry show. Mark and I are old friends. I love Mark. We go way back. You know, when Mark bought his first case of books from Jack Hare, I'm the one who answered the phone and sold him his first case of books way back yonder. And you know, Ben Drunkers and I go way back. Ben was
Now,
the first
is
to
that
buy.
an old hippie term, real quick? Is case of books an old hippie term? Is that like a lid?
Yeah, a case. 20. There was 24 books in a case.
Okay,
No,
okay.
these were books, actual books.
Real books.
Hey, how
Where's
old
no
of a soul
clothes,
am I
yeah.
though? I should get a round of applause, honestly. Like that, like
But
pick up on that
Ben
code. Come on.
Ben Drunkers was one of the first people to be a sponsor of Time for Him. He called in to talk to Jack, and Jack was on the road. Ben and I were talking. I told him about my little TV show. Ben loved it. I told him that we needed a little bit of money to keep it going. Ben sent some money, and then Ben wanted to get a copy of the tape to show in his museum. I said we couldn't afford to make the tape. Ben sent more money. He paid for the tape, and Ben has helped support Time for Hemp all along. So I mean, there's a lot of people I love.
Yeah.
The audience, man, it rocks when they show up, because that means my audience, Ben Drunkers, my audience, Lynette Shaw, my audience, Michael Krawitz, is got a place to let their ears be heard, and when they walk away, they benefit. They benefit. I mean, they really freaking benefit from Mike and from Mary Lynn and from hearing the message of Keith, because they're informative. When they open their mouth and talk, they're not just shooting shit.
Yeah, and that's what I found. It's like,
well, you asked. I mean, so it's my audience. I know it sounds cheesy.
it's not cheesy. That's a you statement. Like, get into, as much as I know you now, like that's a you thing. I would expect nothing different. I would never even thought. I mean, as much as I love the audience, like there's so many people that I'm just a fan of, and I'm like, oh yes, they're gonna be on. But that at the core of it is love, right? At the core of it, that was the theme, was love, and
that's the thing
where
too,
love
because
comes.
Mark Emery and Jack Hare and Michael Krawitz and Lynette Shaw and Mary Lynn Mather, all these people, all these years, we've done it for free. We roll up our sleeves and we've done it. This whole thing is volunteer. Nobody in this whole thing that's happening for 30 hours is getting a damn dime out of it. We do it because we love it. Two, we're tired of seeing people going behind bars. It really rags our mind to no end to see people being locked up for a plant. And it just makes me horrible inside when I see people who have Parkinson's, who shake like this, who if they smoke cannabis would just do this. And it's horrible to see children who are in pain and can't walk, but if they had cannabis, could not be in pain and could walk. And that just really frustrates not just me, but Mark Emery and Mary Lynn Matthery and Michael Krawitz and Dakta Green. And we've just had our belly full of that crap. And that's why we do it. And if you're going to be an activist for this, you asked earlier, to answer your question, I tell you to think twice. Because I wanted to be a comedian. I was in Hollywood trying to be a comedian. I was working on a comedy magazine. I was down at the Comedy Strip every night, hanging out, trying to figure out what would be good and funny. And Jack Hare walked into my life, talked me into being a cannabis activist. Number one, it changes your life. It's like you learn for the first time that the color of blue is not yellow, it's the color of blue. Light comes on in your head and you can't unlearn the truth. Then, because you can't unlearn that truth, it becomes a dominant thing in your life. And when it becomes a dominant thing in your life, it's hard to get a job elsewhere. It's hard to get work outside. People will give you a rough life, call you nuts, call you a wacko. People who used to respect you will tell you you're off the deep end. And you'll find that every penny that comes into your life gets dumped into this cause, because you want to see people no more go to jail. You want to see people who are sick no more be sick. You want to see people who don't have jobs start having jobs, and it just makes you mad.
And I think a lot of that is like
do it.
Well, a lot of that, my generation, and I'm generation like right there on X. So I'm not a millennial, but I'm like a year or two from it, so it's not a big deal. But I find a lot, we just don't have a concept of working for principle anymore, right? Which principle, to a T, I am a capitalist by nature, so to a T, principle is not profitable, right? But principle is more important than profitable, because profitable is outside of that mindset, right? Profitable goes, profitable is more of a greedy trait, as we're aspiring wealth or aspiring presidents over something is it's more of an internal thing, right? Like just getting enough to what you need, but to be able to give away, right? And I think that we're losing the sense of philanthropy if we haven't lost it completely. But I really feel like this pandemic that's been going on has given us, I've seen more charity happen in these last 2 weeks than anything I've seen in quite some time. And so, and Michael, I was going to ask you yourself as well too, pretty much the same question, because I know you've been fighting the fight and you've been doing it on an international level. Whenever Jack gave you the keys and said, hey, go take that to the other side of the world. So how did those travels affect you in your activism for the better?
How did what affect me?
How did your travels to foreign countries so early on in activism, how'd that affect you, moving forward or back then?
It's funny. I started working on international stuff, and I guess I don't know if this is going to switch to full screen or not since I'm so dark here. I apologize for the light, but it's the best I could do at short notice here. But
if that's the best light you can get, then you're living off grid, brother.
My office is very off grid. No cell phone service out here on the mountain.
Oh, you're so safe.
But at least you can sort of see me. Yeah, I love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no 5G here. You're worried about that. But check this out. Check this out. So I got into working on international stuff and all the cannabis stuff at the international level in the mid 90s. And when I went to Europe the first time, it really wasn't about activism. It was about just kind of me taking a big trip, trying to see the world a little bit. You see, when I got injured in the military, I was right on the cusp of going on a big trip. I had planned on it and worked on it for months and months to set up this huge trip going across Asia. And that got detoured by my injuries, and I never got back to it. So when I got out of the service, I tried to do it. Asia turned out to be too expensive, like cost prohibitive, going to Korea, into Japan, wanted to go to Thailand. It was going to be a big trip. So couldn't afford that, wound up going across Europe. And at that time, we had our medical marijuana program basically was just being born here in the United States. Dennis Perone and Prop 215, all that 1996, about that history. Well, at the same time, I didn't even know much about it then, but I was walking right into cannabis history in the Netherlands, in Holland. And I actually was told by the doctor right there in his clinic that they can do a prescription access for me for cannabis, no problem. Doctor could write a prescription, and I was floored. Yeah, so my first prescription was from a doctor in the Netherlands, and never really thought that was going to do that. I was just seeing a doctor as more of a routine thing. Hey, if I was that far away from home, I figured, I'd try to see a doctor and just establish kind of a medical file, and here I go and get pulled into a brand new medical marijuana program. But first thing that I really did in international stuff was go to the United Nations in 1998. And that was at a big drug summit in New York. And all my work was centered on New York, on the United Nations there. I really didn't think much about traveling around the world as a byproduct of my international work. My international work at that point, I would have really defined it as just setup work, just trying to sort of imagine a day when you can actually get the rest of the world to finally move on drug policy, and the United States was ready to move on drug policy. Well, that wouldn't be the day that you want to show up at the United Nations. That's not the best strategy, to show up and not have any idea how to get in the door and just need to work inside. Yeah. So the work that I did from 1998 all the way to 2008 was basically just to get people ID tags. My first international travel was as a byproduct of a little project that we did in Virginia Tech Normal, where we wanted to talk to the marijuana movement, and we wanted to get kind of the feeling. We were working inside of this new drug policy reform movement. We had started working with a group in Washington, D.C. called the Marijuana Policy Project. It was a brand new group at that time. Now it's a well-known group that's done some pretty stellar things. But that back then it was just a new idea. And working with them, we got, all kinds of information. I mean, you go to these conferences and they'd have 20 or 30 or 40 different organizations working on harm reduction, working on needle exchange and that kind of stuff in harm reduction. You got these people working on public health and access to medicine issues, and all these things intersect marijuana. So what we did, we collected up flyers at the end of these meetings that these big organizations were going to throw away. And we collected them up and we brought them to Amsterdam and we handed them out at the Cannabis Cup in Amsterdam. And at that time, there had never been an information table inside the Cannabis Cup. And we're going to have at least a video, and I hope we'll have Debbie Goldsberry on when we float around to California Pacific Standard Time, 420, sometime a long time from now. But hopefully we'll be able to chat about this, because she was the one who was basically running the activist side of our stuff that we were doing around the Cannabis Cup. And this was the first of its kind. Now, a Cannabis Cup, golly, there must be 100 different ones. But back then, in the 90s, pretty sure there was just the one. And Amsterdam was the place to have it. It's pretty darn cool. It was a lot of fun. We went there for several years as just a little project from Virginia Tech Normal, a little school, college-based normal chapter. We collected funds, we got a grant, and we sent a team to Amsterdam to hand out flyers and to talk to activists, to not activists, but enthusiasts, cannabis connoisseurs, people willing to plunk down $500 just to get a pass to go around and be able to sample some of the best bud in Amsterdam. The bud didn't come with the $500. You still had to buy the bud. That was just to get you in the door. So a serious cannabis connoisseur meeting, and I had a lot of fun with that. But the international work, gosh, that came later, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But Gary, I wanted to get back to talking to you a little bit about, you were just getting into a little bit of history with New Zealand. I mean, when you said Nixon's war on drugs, it sort of set in motion the laws. I mean, what was the legal situation right before that? My brain has a blank. If you said it already, I apologize. But what was it then, and what is it now, and how is it changing? Like the baseline for smoking a joint, having an ounce of pot at your house or whatever. What was it like before Nixon?
Right. Well, cannabis was made illegal in this country in 1927, but it wasn't really until after the 1971 UN convention that brought about our Misuse of Drugs Act, which was also a consequence of Nixon starting the war on drugs. It pretty much forced on us from outside. We didn't really have a problem with illicit use of substances at that time. However, once the Misuse of Drugs Act came in, everything changed. I was 13 or 14, I think, when our Misuse of Drugs Act came into force. So it's been my entire adult life that has been plagued by this. Now, we have a problem in that everybody in this country that wants cannabis can get it. So a lot of people don't think there's a problem. You know what I mean? Well, it's not quite like that, but there is a ready available black market. So a lot of people think, why do we need it legal? I can get what I want.
Well,
I have to keep pointing out to them that,
is it New Zealand like the size of like Iowa? I mean, like, aren't you a dinky little country? I mean,
yeah,
it should be it should be impossible to get it in your country.
Gary, I would smack him right now virtually, calling your country dinky. I would smack him over the stream.
Thank you.
Dinky. Aren't you a dinky little country? I mean, technically, yes, but still.
And you're on this island. I would think it would be so easy for them to just take control over it and to clamp down on it. Anybody who even had the thought of marijuana in their head would be behind bars already.
well, you'd think that, you know, they can't even keep cannabis out of prisons. How are they going to keep it out of anywhere else?
There you go.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
You know, we all find a way. That's the point. People think there isn't a problem because we've all found a way. But we all still live in fear. We all still have the police using this as an excuse to interfere with us. You know, it's all the consequences of being caught, because a lot of people don't get caught. and think there isn't a problem. You know what I
Gary,
mean?
what's your CBD market like out there? I'm curious.
Well, CBD has only just been made legal as of April 1st. CBD
Is flower
products.
legal there? CBD flower, hemp flower?
Prior to April 1st, the only products available were Sativex and Tilray, which are both imported products.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
So now we're moving to local production, and we've got several companies, the startup companies, that are going to be producing local cannabis medicine. So we're not reliant on an imported base. There's no point of importing it, really.
Now, you guys can really encompass your whole economy just inside your, you wouldn't have to import or export anything, just with your weather and everything you guys have there. You could live completely independent.
The unfortunate consequence of having 100% black market is that all of our cannabis, black market cannabis, is THC rich and CBD poor. So we do actually have to get our CBD strain production up and running for our medicinal use.
And here in America, it's funny. I run a CBD boutique. It's really the first of its type because we don't sell any F shit here. We only sell the top brass here. Like I make my own product. It's on the door. It's on the label. I have it grown. I'm seed to sale, farm to market, right? And you don't find that here because everybody's reselling product. And so we've gotten a lot of accolades, and we don't really do much bragging or boasting about it. We just kind of just do what we do because it's for the people. I didn't make this place to get rich, and I haven't gotten rich off this place because the stigma's still there, right? But I found that the stigma is just as much alive inside of the industry as it is out, right? Like now, kids are actually going up to their dealers now and saying, "Hey, how much? I want some good weed, but how much CBD does your weed have in it?" And if the dealer doesn't know, he's losing business, because now the science is out and it says, the stuff you guys were smoking in the 70s before they got all this GMO Monsanto style weed, was more in line with this hemp bud here. I mean, this is some of my favorite. I grew up smoking pot, and I smoke nothing but hemp flower now. The day I started smoking hemp flower, for me it resonated, right? And I went through a while where I had that stigma, and this is how I know of it so well, because I had that stigma for a while. I was like, oh, well, I don't really deal with stoners, But no, I deal with cannabis, and I love stoners because I used to be a stoner, right? And if I'm going to see a movie, I'm going to light up a real joint. If I'm trying to do some artwork or some painting, I'm going to light up a real joint. If I'm going to work, I'm going to light up some CBD. You know what I mean? And so it's like, for me, the responsible usage, the responsible application, right, is where the normal message is really geared in. It's that normal without the A, right? It's like it's basically normal, and if somebody doesn't want to smoke, that's all within their rights. But I find that the stigma that we're fighting three separate fights. You got the medical marijuana crowd that doesn't mess with anybody, right? They don't mess with the stoners, they don't mess with CBD. Then you have the CBD crowd. The CBD crowd is like, I don't mess with stoners either. It's more odor and topicals. I only do topicals and da da da. I was like, okay, good for you. I only do isolate. Well, you're getting a shitty product. Cool. And then you got, the straight stoners, and they're like, oh, well, I do the other, man. I don't need CBD. I do the other. And it's like, no, you actually do need CBD. If you had more CBD, you'd enjoy your weed even more, And so, we're fighting the same fight, but nobody wants to learn anything nowadays, man. People are intellectually lazy. And that's what I love about you guys, honestly, being, you guys come from a generation that reads newspapers, that reads stuff, and, that actually go and do the work as opposed to just having it to you. And so the reason why I'm asking these questions, the last few that I've been asking, because I'm looking to bridge that gap. Bridging that gap is very difficult. Not everybody, I consider myself an old soul because I work for free. Like I took this project on for free, and I don't care because it's near to my heart. I believe in Casper. I believe in his message. I believe in Dakta. I believe in what you guys are doing out there. And I dropped everything I had going to come do this, right? Like I had a very successful digital marketing company, and I started a retail business like an idiot, right? But before I did that, I went and did the work. I backpacked through Oregon, Colorado, California, and went to every farm I could and learned everything I possibly could as to why this CBD makes my ADHD go away, and just started gaining applied knowledge. And so now I find that I come back and everybody's reselling products from these big manufacturers, and they're just okay with just not learning anymore, and it's like continued knowledge is so important here, because if you get caught spitting the wrong thing, it's just as bad spitting nothing at all. I'd rather somebody not say anything about pot than say the wrong thing,
Well, and hidden knowledge is even more difficult. Jack Hare unearthed the Hemp for Victory film in the archives of the United States government, but he had to go and ask for it like 9 different ways from Sunday, before, and then they kept misdirecting him, and he finally found one copy of it. And because he was able to find that one copy in a world that was at that point allowed for reproduction to be made easy at home, that one copy did get reproduced, which then we were able to show to the whole world that our United States government did know that cannabis was good, did know that we had to have hemp, wanted us to grow hemp for victory, and that our government was deliberately lying to the people. And it was Jack Hare who unearthed that hidden knowledge. So yeah, you're right. Knowledge and finding it for it and seeking it is very important.
So tell me about Jack. Like, I mean, you can find the facts on Jack, and you can hear stuff out of books and this and that, and you can hear the myth, the man, the legend. But tell me about Jack. Like, if we're sitting in a room, what's Jack like? Is he funny? Is he
bombastic? I loved him. He built his business out of his house, so he's always walking around in his boxer shorts and t-shirt normally. And when anybody would show up to do an interview, he didn't care. He got dressed up by putting on his learning
nice shirt?
Oh, wait a minute. It's 10:19. It's almost 20 minutes past the hour.
Oh, good call.
Jack Hare. We got 1 minute. 1 minute.
All right.
I better have a pre-roll here.
It's right, ladies and gentlemen. Let's hit it.
So you got a bead on where it is 420 right now? Because I couldn't figure it out.
Oh, I can't help it.
Yeah,
It's in my soul. It's in my soul. Jack Hare put it in there. With
It's got to be Australia, right?
No, it's somewhere in the Tasman Sea. It's not quite Australia. There's a 2-hour gap between New Zealand and Australia.
So there's the next one.
Five,
we got Finland coming.
4, 3, 2, 1.
I love it.
So, Michael, who's your friend from Finland that's coming?
Alexi.
Tell me about him.
Alexi, he's an activist, a videographer. He's been covering a lot of the meetings in United Nations, and interesting fellow. He'll have a lot to be able to give you input from the European Union perspective.
Well, I did want to share one thing about Jack. It drove me nuts. I mean, it set me over the edge, and Jack knew it, and he didn't care. Jack, if he saw something on your dinner plate and he thought it tastes good, he wouldn't even ask. He would not even ask. He'd walk over like he's talking to you about this and that, and just look you in the eye without any hesitation. And all of a sudden, just reach over and just snag, mashed potato or a piece of cake, or sometimes he would just do it with his hand, with his fingers onto my plate in the middle of my dinner, and he just go, oh, this is good, Casper. Where'd you get that? I want some of that sometime. And you go right on talking like there was nothing wrong with it, like he didn't do anything out of the ordinary. And I just about had a meltdown.
Oh, you can tell it's a thing for you too. I love that story. That's probably my favorite story I've ever heard now, because that's what I was looking for in that answer. Like, that's what I want, right? Like, Jack, that funny. Like, cause I when I see you, I gotta stick my fingers in your food, and I'm like, no matter what happens. Oh, what's that, Casper? Oh, this is great.
Oh my God, send me other. And then I did quit. I quit on Jack 3 times because Jack somehow felt like he could treat me like a rug, like he did a lot of people. And then he felt that he could also do that and miss making a payday. See, when I told Jack to begin with, I was never going to work for him, and he kept upping it and upping it. Finally, he said, "Okay, I'll give you $300 a week," which back then was a lot of money. He said, "I'll give you a car, so you don't have to worry about having transportation. I got a car. We'll put it in your name. And Casper will hire one of your friends to be your assistant so that they can drive you to and from, because I know you're a lousy driver, and then they can help you get the T-shirts out and the books out. Just please work for me." So I finally did. But then he missed a couple of, because then when he said, "Oh, and I'll give you an ounce of pot every Friday," that's when I said, "Okay, I'll come to work for you." That's what. Yeah. All right. So then he missed not only the ounce of pot, but he missed the paydays, and I just didn't show up. I just did not show up. So then Captain Ed, his buddy, his partner, his friend, they've been since childhood, came over, paid me, gave me a quarter pound of pot, said, "Please come back." Well, then Jack called up one day and just bitched me out on the phone for something he did. Something Jack Hare did. He said that there were some books that were supposed to be shipped, and he yelled at me because he didn't arrive. He was pissed off because he was waiting to have 400 people who wanted to buy these books. The books didn't arrive, and he yelled at me for about an hour. And then I looked at it and went, oh, Jack was supposed to have shipped them. Jack said he shipped them. I don't know why they didn't get shipped. Why doesn't Jack ask Jack? And I quit. And Captain Ed came over 2 days later when he realized I really did quit and set me down and said, Casper, I don't know what it is, but something inside of me tells me for a fact that you've got some kind of contribution for this movement that's going to really help this movement. And I want you to promise me, if you ever have a problem with Jack Hare again, you call me and I will take care of Jack. Please, Casper, come back. The movement needs you. Jack needs you. I need you. We don't want you to leave.
Man, that's a potent ass story right there. That is probably gonna be one of my favorite parts of this whole deal when I'm going back and running over this footage. I'm a lot better editing than I am producing as well too. So we'll be sharing everywhere. But that story is amazing because guys like Jack, you see that they're humans, right? Like you always think about the man, the myth, the legend, and you don't get any real stories. And then you also don't get people that are good enough friends with them to actually tell you a good story, right? Like some good truth. And, guys like Jack need a Ed, and guys like Ed need a Jack, right? And they make a great team. And then the ability in both of them to notice your worth at that point in time is like, it's amazing, and that's these relationships that I keep hearing about Jack, because I've asked a couple people that question now that I've spoken with on your behalf. And, the stories that I hear are always, they're legitimate. And that's how it's really a small team that's went worldwide and done what they've done,
And I tell you, I was blessed to have known Captain Ed, and so was Jack. When Captain Ed passed away, oh, it hurt me.
You guys want to try some of this hemp flower?
And it really hurt Jack. I mean, I don't think Jack ever got over it. I mean, they were like best friends in life. They were fighting.
How far was their death apart? When did Captain Ed die?
It must have been 93.
Yeah.
No, I mean 90. I mean, it was early. I mean, he went way too soon. I mean, and Captain Ed had the first head shop in California. And when they outlawed paraphernalia, Captain Ed was the first to put the paraphernalia in his window and hire a lawyer and challenge the state of California to put him out of business. And he won, and he won, and he won, and he made it so people could sell pipes, people sell papers. And because of Captain Ed, there was a hemp shop and a lot of places that there would never be a hemp shop again. And Jack also taught me that whatever you do, educate. And that's why he had a learning t-shirt. He was so damn proud of his t-shirt, which if you look at it, it's kind of like simple, but you look at it again, it's not. I mean, you look at it's got all the little paper, fiber filled things you can make on it. On the back of it, it's got quote from our presidents and people who made it. And so when you look at this t-shirt of Jack Hare's, you learn something. It doesn't just look groovy, which it did, but he called it the learning t-shirt. And Jack always, and Chris Conrad too, one of the things you learn as a cannabis activist, they want to shut you up. They want to edit you if they can. They want to edit you out of context if they can. And that way, when you show up and have doctors and lawyers and patients show up and say they need it for medicine, the news will show a bunch of hippies and tie-dyes going, we want to get high. And that they don't show the doctors during the interview. And so Chris Conrad and Jack Hare taught me to talk fast. Say as much as you can in a hurry. That way it's hard to edit you out. It's hard to put words in your mouth. And that way you get a lot of facts in before they shut you up. And that's what we did. Learn how to talk fast, get all the paper, medications, make fuel. I got you right there. Whoa, motherfucker, I learned a lot of shit, right? And so,
I used to hate, I'm always trying to work on speaking slower because of my ADHD, but that makes a lot of sense. Like, that's funny. That's good stuff. That's a gold tip. I'm writing that down.
You'll catch old school activists who are cannabis activists talking a mile a minute when they get talking about cannabis because they know that you're going to be shut up. You're part of the brother press. You want to outlaw this motherfucker? We got to tell you right now. Paper fiber filled with medications. You got to make sure the paper fiber filled with medications. It's good for
Look,
people.
I'm going to come out with the Cliff Notes on this whole session, on this whole thing. I'm going to come out with the Cliff Notes, and it's going to fucking go like hotcake. It's going to be the new Bible of American activism. It's going to be, that's a sexy name, too. That's a sexy name.
But then the other thing that I've learned from this movement is love, because it just don't happen. I mean, Michelle Rainey, she was dying of cancer. Her last 2 years, she was up handing out flyers to end cannabis prohibition in Canada. She was showing up at demonstrations. She was chaining herself to politicians' desks. On her deathbed, she was donating money to organizations that were ending cannabis prohibition. And her legacy was that this plant can help cure cancer. Please tell the world.
How did Captain Ed die?
You don't get that in most movements.
She died of cancer. How did Captain Ed die?
Well, I don't. Jack thought it was contrived by the government, but they
Like
say
Dr. Sebi shit.
They say the reports, I think, attribute it to an unusual lung cancer that didn't make any sense for Captain Ed to have. But it was the type of thing that you could also get that if it happened to be on a doorknob and you touched the doorknob and then maybe consumed it or whatever. You know, I don't know. There was just a lot of thoughts because it just seemed so strange that after Jack's book started getting off the ground and they were saying $10,000 to prove us wrong and they were getting their voice out, Jack's best friend was gone and Jack felt like a bird with one wing. Jack flew in a circle for quite a while.
Was Jack religious?
No. Well, I mean, yes, but I mean, not in the way that most people would think. Jack was smart enough to know that there's a maker, but he didn't sit down and give it a name of Jesus or Buddha.
Yeah, it's just a maker. It's just what it is. So the other day, and this might be a little bit off topic, but it probably is anyway. But I'm not scared of what I'm going to say. So I do a lot of DMT, right? And so that's the thing. I'm a naturalist. Okay, this is what it is. Everything goes along with that. If you believe in cannabis culture, you probably believe in eating. You should believe in eating healthy, and you should believe in a lot of other elements that go along with it. And that's what I've been seeing. I've been told you about this the other day. I was like, the agenda that we were being pushed on us through the 80s and 90s in terms of food and health versus what it is now, right? Where everybody's on this holistic kick. You see all these magazines. I was like, they knew how to attack, and that's how clever they are. They knew how to attack a movement going through with Burger King, right? They play the long game, right? Like we play the immediate game. They play the long game. They're like, oh, well, let's just get a double cheeseburger. And then like a double cheeseburger, like that's more than one. That's two cheeseburgers. Oh yeah, let's get, And then Taco Bell. How dare they, Taco Bell, And these things now, you come back and like it was a conspiracized murder plot. Like in 20 years, like they will kill that restaurant will kill you. Eat them every day for 20 years, you're done for it, right?
Well, we talked about how they used to have a doctor come on TV, doctors, and say, "Hello, I'm a doctor, and I think cigarettes are good for you. In fact, if you smoke a cigarette, you'll be energized and you'll be happier." As
one cigarette a day keeps the doctor away.
I don't know. Did they do that in New Zealand? Wasn't it that way too in New Zealand?
What do you think, Gary?
Is Gary still here?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
It sucks trying to engineer because you know what I'm going to do, guys? I want to play some of these videos because I want you to see Mr. Grinspoon's video or Spence, the guy that wrote the awesome book, his son, Peter Grinspoon.
Dr. Peter Grinspoon.
Dr. Peter Grinspoon out of Harvard. Yes, I do apologize.
But let Gary finish answering the question first.
Oh no, please do, Gary. Please do. I'm just going to excuse myself real quick though.
A bit of the history. I take my hat off to everyone who was an activist through the dark days of the
Right.
80s and the early 90s before everything changed, because those guys did all the hard yards, and it's so unfair that some of them didn't live to see the end result. But remember, there was a time at the end of the 1970s when we thought it was all going to change. We thought Jimmy Carter was going to bring about a legalized cannabis market, and then bang, along came Reagan and Bush, and everything changed. And the people who managed to keep going, keep fighting the fight during those times are the real heroes, because that was really dark.
Yeah, I remember seeing a headline on a newspaper: Jimmy Carter wants to legalize marijuana, and I just thought I was hallucinating for a minute, right? And but I can certainly tell you now that we are this far down the road on my end, it is a blessing to see, and it's a more sane reality. I first saw this sane reality when I was in the military serving for Uncle Sam in Germany at a Pershing missile site. I worked in the Army for a handful of years and proud of it. And I also got a chance to go to Amsterdam on leave while I was. Well, then I got punished for it because we weren't supposed to go there because, well, Americans should never be someplace where we could be compromised, right? Or there's drugs. But it was worth the 30 days extra duty that we got to be in Amsterdam. I loved their money. It looked like wallpaper, just beautiful pieces of art, of flowers and stuff back in the day. And we got to enjoy the canals. We went into the coffee shops. And it was so cool to sit there and read the USA Today. For those who don't know, that's a newspaper from way back when. To read the newspaper, USA, and have eggs and bacon, and then have the waiter bring you over a choice of hashish or marijuana to top off your meal. I just fell in love with my new country. And I hated going back to the military base, but I did. But that was the first time I saw sanity, where there wasn't people being arrested for stupid stuff, and cops could focus on real crimes, and there was just, I don't know, a different vibe, and there was a different approach to everything in life there in that community, and it just seemed like a little more safe, a little less crime ridden. I don't know, and I loved it. And then it was many years after that I met Jack Hare, and then many years after that, it's a reality in my world.
You'll laugh when I say that my 2 years in Amsterdam in 94, 95, most of the Americans that I bumped into were actually on the run because they were wanted for cannabis crimes in the US.
Indeed.
You know, that's what because I was there as an illegal overstayer and I was moving around in the squat scene and everything. So all the people I came across from the States were pretty much refugees almost.
Yep.
Almost stateless refugees.
So tell us about the junk food in New Zealand.
We've got all the American stuff, unfortunately.
Really? Same junk food? Oh my God, no.
Well, McDonald's is everywhere.
Well, yeah.
Well, no, that's one thing I liked about Germany. I can still find a McDonald's. I can still find a Pizza Hut.
Evidently, they're everywhere.
Burger King has just gone belly up after having taken a government wage subsidy.
Oh.
Not good. We've got KFC. We've had it forever. You know, in fact, we have our own domestic takeaways, which are a cut above. To be honest, they're a bit more expensive, but they're worth paying the extra for. That's my personal opinion. I try not to eat any of that McDonald's or any of that stuff.
Well, for me, that's home cooking. Well, on Christmas Eve, for a special meal, we got to go to McDonald's, and we got to get our choice of French fry or a dessert, which was really cool. And we just felt like we were just eating high on the hog because we got to go to McDonald's that night. Nobody, it's really fancy to do that. And then now that I'm older, every time I eat at McDonald's, it's like mom's home cooking.
Oh dear.
Looks like Martell's about ready to share something here. It looks like the interview that he did with Peter.
He's working on it, looks like.
All right, well, groovy.
Yeah, for me, McDonald's was a pretty big kind of event in the afternoon. We'd be riding our bicycles down the hill from my friend's house to the McDonald's where his mom worked, so she could give us a free French fries. And if you picture the 1970s with a couple of kids going down the road with those Schwinn bikes with the banana seats on them and the big handlebars, that was us getting down the road as fast as we could. And you hit the brakes just right, and you could slide sideways on those things. And we'd slide sideways and park, you know, just like in the movies out in front of McDonald's. And that's a great memory. But as a general rule today, I don't eat a heck of a lot at McDonald's. Although I do like their egg sandwich in the morning. They're very consistent. When you're on the highway, pull over and you get an egg McMuffin. And I don't know. It's hard to imagine that they do too much to screw up as simple a sandwich as that. But yeah, McDonald's, and basically my general rule is anything that you would eat, any restaurant that you would go to where every single thing that they serve you at that restaurant comes off of the same truck, that's kind of not the place that I want to go.
Yeah, good idea. It's good to have options, and as I say, we have some much better options. The fish and chips here is really good quality.
Oh, nice.
Now,
Really,
aren't you concerned about
oh,
all the radiation in the ocean? Aren't you concerned about that?
He's talking about Japan, Fukushima.
Yeah, we're all concerned about that. We're also, our main problem with our fish isn't that they're being poisoned, they're being fished out by foreign fishing organizations.
Well, it's getting to the point where almost it's safer to eat artificial fish than to eat the real fish.
Yeah, well, which ones are full of plastic? The real fish.
Right. The real fish have more plastic in them.
Sad but true,
Sad but true. Sad but
It's something like, I think it's something like 2030 that the weight of plastic in the ocean is going to be more than the weight of fish. That's shocking. And this stuff has been forced on us because the alternatives have been criminalized.
Right. That's another thing Jack pointed out, that these oil spills, if this was fuel made out of hemp, would just be biodegradable. These plastics that are being swallowed by whale and by porpoise and turtle, they wouldn't have a chance to do it because the plastic made out of hemp is so quickly biodegradable. And same with our papers, it's all biodegradable. I love that phrase, biodegradable.
There's no need to transport biofuels around the world. You just grow them where they're needed to be consumed.
Exactly, too. And it creates jobs when you do it. Right? That's a good thing. So, Martell, are we going to be seeing Peter Grinspoon? I think we lost our mixing board.
Hey, you must be working on it.
Frantically.
Well, I didn't believe it when I first heard about all the things that cannabis could do. Did you?
To be honest, I became aware of cannabis about the same time that our Misuse of Drugs Act came into play. So my education in cannabis for the first 10 years was the myths that are passed about between users and dealers, etc. Everything that gets shared around on the black market, whether it's true or not. So it was only after I've been using cannabis for about 10 years, I thought I better actually do some research into what the fuck I'm doing here. We all relied so heavily on the wise tales spread amongst users and the black market that the information was just crazy, I actually had to do a lot of reading to get myself clued up, but it was all self-education. It wasn't handed to me. At that time, you know what it's like. We had to go and seek out books, buy them, or go to the library and get them, and if you could get them. A lot of them didn't come to this country at that time. So researching wasn't even as easy as it is now. And that, I think, is a consequence of the whole prohibition thing, is that so many people get into something they've got no concept about other than the nonsense that's spread around or the misinformation. And yeah, when you have your eyes open to the full story of the cannabis plant, you realize that this has been denied us for the benefit of toxic products to replace it.
Well, and from my point of view, I don't know about you, but once I learned it, I couldn't shut up about it. And anytime anybody would say something stupid about how wonderful petrol fuel was or how horrible cannabis was, I got up on my soapbox and preached for an hour. I mean, it's like you can't unlearn the truth, and it just, like I said, anybody who wants to be an activist, you just need to stop and think about it first, because it's not something you can stop doing once you start. Really, I mean, once you're enlightened, you can't go back to being stupid.
Yeah, but the point I think I was trying to make was that the fear and the stigma around the whole scene was such that even seeking out information made you suspect. That's why, you know, seeking out information was seen as almost as clandestine as having to seek out the product itself.
No, and I get that, and the government likes it when people don't know.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. As an activist, you really put yourself in peril, because you put yourself up against that type of machine.
Yeah.
And they do.
Well,
And look what they've done to Dakta. Look what they've done to you. I mean, they've changed your life. They've changed Dakta's life, my life. I mean, we're on the run. You know, we're on the edge. We're considered fringe. We're considered, you know, hippies sometimes. But we're walking around with the truth coming out of our mouth and out of our books.
I'll let you into a bit of a secret. I looked exactly like you, Casper, before Dakta got arrested last time, and I decided I wasn't going to cut my hair or shave until we had legal cannabis. And that was 2015, the last time they locked Dakta up for cannabis.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. You know, they paint us with this big brush. They want us to go away, and
Yeah.
it's really hard. So if you're coming on as an activist, you got to be prepared for that.
Well, I also use it as a device because I interact with our politicians quite regularly, and I make them aware that the reason I have this is because I can't cut it until they change the law and make cannabis legal.
Well, that was one of the benefits to having Dr. Todd McCurry on board as a cannabis activist. He was a surprise to people. He came out in his little tweed suit and his PhDs and all of his MDs and his Harvard backing and the 3 books that he wrote and a list of patients that would blow your mind, and he would look you dead in the eye and go, you know, cannabis is good for a lot of medicinal purposes, and it would just shock politicians. Right, Mike?
Well, first of all, I have to unmute myself. Hey, Casper, I know you wanted me to answer that question, but you know what I'd rather tell you is I was just doing some research, and right now it's 4:20 in the afternoon in Wake Island. Did you know that?
Oh, I didn't. Well, let's say hello to Wake Island.
And Nauru,
I've worn a Nehru before, Nehru jacket, Nehru shirt.
Marshall Islands,
We've been under martial law for a while, so I recognize that.
Micronesia,
I have no idea what that is.
Solomon Islands,
I read about that in the Solomon and Gomorrah, right?
and a huge swath of Russia, evidently.
Oh, our Russian friends. We've been talking about Russia for 3 years. We know that they're here in America, right? They're our leaders now. They're in charge of our White House, according to MSLSD or whatever you want to call it, and see no news, hear no news.
MSLSD, I like that one.
Yeah, MSLSD and CNN for see no news.
Well, it shows you how sequential my brain is, but when I open up my brain to answer any questions, the first thing that jumps out is talking about Jack again. And I had something I wanted to share earlier that I thought was a reasonable piece of advice. If you really wanted to learn about Jack and kind of what he was to the movement, try to go grab a YouTube of him actually speaking out at one of the rallies. And there's so many rallies that he spoke at that it's not hard at all to find a rally or two of his speeches, his live speeches. And he was so passionate about this information that it was infectious, and a million people at least I know of got infected by his enthusiasm and wound up buying the books and becoming ambassadors for his feelings and his beliefs. And yeah, Jack was a steamroller, man. I'll tell you, he was an amazing guy. He had a lot of momentum, and hanging around with him was kind of like being on a roller coaster ride. It's like being on a road trip, even if you were standing still.
You know what's funny is that before I found out who Jack was and Casper, like I'll admit I was new to the finding out about Jack in my you know infinite wisdom, right? I was like I was so new to it. I only found out who Jack was specifically. I heard about him. I knew his strand. I knew his cups, but who he was enough to where I was enamored was just about, I would say 3 months ago, right? I was sitting there and I was making some content for an Instagram page of mine. And it was an interview, the first interview that you did with him. And I saw this interview and I was just in awe because I'm like, this guy is me, right? Like I get that excited about some shit and I would just rattle off some facts. And like, I'm like, I can resonate with that guy. I want to be him so bad. Like he was my Michael Jordan, right? And I was like, I just want to be him so bad right now. Like he's so damn cool. You know what I'm sitting there like, and I'm watching, and I did not recognize. This is what's funny, Casper. This whole thing comes back around because like if you would have told me 3 months, I'd have been sitting there with the host because I almost got kicked off the Instagram because you guys. Because I was trying to have it dictated so I could write it right inside of a blog, some quotes he had, and so I played the YouTube in slow motion. And you and him were so baked, you know, just like, it was like, well, it was that part about the bird. He's like, whether it's a bird in the tree or a bird in the wild. And you're like, no. And he's like, yeah. So I was sitting there snapping pictures of some hemp flower I just got, knowing that's not compliant like an idiot. And so they wrote me back like, showed your picture on there, had your picture big as hell and said, you're about to get kicked off if you post any more shit. I was like, damn it, man. But it was, if you would have told me fast forward 3 months later, and I'm sitting there across the table from the guy that was there interviewing the guy that I love so much, you know, then you would tell me that I would grow to love you that much as well too, because I thought you were hilarious. And I was sitting there like, man, this is that for me, it's so surreal, but it goes in line with my whole life path. I spent my whole adult life pretty much hanging out with seniors, right? Like I did door to door selling emergency medical pendants for 10 years, right? And then I jump out of that, start my own business. And like a branding company, but then I get into CBD immediately. I take it, I try it, gets rid of my ADHD. Well, not rid of, but most of. And I'm like, damn. But so I start my boutique, and my boutique's all old people, right? Like they come through, old ladies to come by here to kick it with me and drink alkaline water and shoot the shit about their grandson. And I love that shit. Like I think that is the best knowledge I could possibly gain. I'd much rather hang out with people way older than me than people way younger than me, or people my age, you know?
I think it's funny too that you picked up on the no. Because anytime I would make fun of my own self, you know, parry my own self, I would go, no, really, no. Because
it was the best part of the
I had to
video.
do softball questions, but you know, because I mean, I didn't want to go on like I helped Jack write, you know, spell check his book, and I've been on his book for 6 months, and I know all this material. I had to pretend like I didn't know it, and I was like shocked for the first time. Right? No, really. So it's funny that you picked up on that because anytime I make spoof of my own self, that's how I do it. It's like my invitation to Casper Leitch's. No.
Anytime I spoof my own self, it's in the shower.
No.
So I got one more story for you about Jack.
Please.
So there was another little project that Virginia Tech Normal took on while I was a leader. We went down to Florida and we're working with the Cannabis Action Network down there, and presenting on stage at the Hemp Fest in Jacksonville, Florida. We got to meet Jack Hare, and we got to hang out with him, and I actually shared the stage with him. And after the event, that was the year, evidently, when the Jack Hare bud came out at the Cannabis Cup, and I don't even think Jack tried it himself yet, and the fellow had already grown some and had it finished and had some nice buds and went racing back to his house so he could share Jack Hare bud with Jack Hare. How cool a thing would that be, you know, if you're a pot enthusiast as he was. And I actually was hanging out with him, and I had gotten to know that he was into pipes, and not just pipes, but specifically making wooden pipes. And my brother had designed a metal pipe that we were, you know, you're talking about legalization in the 1970s, Casper. Well, we were going to sell pipes. We were going to have a pipe design business, pipe sales business. Very, very funny. I got to meet recently the fellow who is the brother of the inventor of the prototype, the little brass prototype. And that came out several years earlier. The reason ours didn't come out was because the Carter administration, the whole thing went bust. The marijuana wasn't legalized and all that, so we never sold the pipe. but the design was super cool and it was made out of metal. So I thought, hey, I'll show Jack this pipe and show him how it's made, with the hope that he can make a wooden pipe out of that design and just have fun with it. I could really see his passion for pipes, and I loved him already. He's I consider him a good friend and ally to me and the movement. And you know, I wanted him to be able to have this and just have fun with it. You know, you're talking about love, Casper. This is really a thing out of love. I really felt that. And I showed it to him. It was funny. A year or so later, he grabs me at a conference and brings me up to this room at this normal meeting. He had a hotel suite up there, and he lays out like 20 different versions of this pipe that he made out of wood. They were all prototypes based on this design that my brother had come up with. And I just loved it. I loved it. I have a few of those prototypes somewhere, and it's just a great part of my whole trip is, you know, hanging out with Jack. And all right, so the thing is that you can go, for everybody out there, you can go and find this video called Secret Agent 420. And it's an obscure video. I'm sure you can find it on DVD, but probably you'll find more copies on VHS, if you know what that is. Right, Casper? And anyway, the video, Secret Agent 420, at some point, Secret Agent 420, the main character, goes up to the top of this mountain to seek wisdom from this guru to learn how to defeat the bad guy in the movie, right? And he goes up the mountain, and who's the guru but Jack Hare? And the story that Jack tells the fellow is the story of the pipe, and it's great. He tells the whole story of how the pipe works and how it helps you reach nirvana. And Secret Agent 420 takes 2 hits and just is gone. And you know, it's just so anyway, yeah. So when you go and finally find that scene in Secret Agent 420 and see Jack and you see what he says about the pipe, just think about me. He called me the Florida Bowl dude because I showed him the pipe in Florida. I was always forever the Florida Bowl dude to him. He was a really sweet guy and just a powerhouse, and you really had to put on a roller skates to keep up with him.
But Jack kidnapped me. Jack kidnapped me. I'm not kidding. No, he did. How I met Jack was I was working at a science supply store, and Jack was getting ready to go on the road, and he needed some banners made that said hemp for fuel, hemp for paper, hemp for fiber. And my boss at the time, who owned the little science supply shop, was like about 10 years younger than me and was born and raised in California. So you would think he would have been like smoking pot from the time he was like 3 weeks old. But he was like so anti-cannabis. It was just, I mean, he made Republicans look liberal. And so when Jack came in and started placing the order for hemp for fuel, hemp for fiber, hemp for paper, my boss came over to me and goes, Casper, these are your kind of people. You need to wait on them. So I went over and I took Jack's order. He placed an order for a lot of banners. So much so that it was almost like $2,000 back in the day even of banners that he needed to have done. And when I went to give my boss the check that Jack wrote, I said, well, how does it make you feel to know that the sale of illegal cannabis is paying your rent this month? Boom! I played it on his desk. And that was a really cool feeling. Well, anytime Jack would call in to check on his order, I would get the call because I handled his call. And Jack loved the way I handled people on the phone, and he liked the way I handled him when he walked in. And he asked me 4 times to go to work for him, and I told him no. 6 months later, he came back in and placed a bunch of more orders and told me that a bunch of his friends from High Times Magazine was going to be at his house, invited me out to spend some time with him, and when he wanted to hire me and talk to me about the job. So I lived in Hollywood. I didn't care. I mean, I dealt with people who've been hanging. I was down on the strip hanging out with Roseanne Barr and people like that. These little people at High Times Magazine really did not impress me. Thank you, go away. But I was nice to Jack and said, okay, I'll be down there. Never showed up. Jack would call in about his order, curious about his order. And he asked me 3 times on the phone and when he came in to get his order to go to work for him. And I said, no, I'm happy where I'm at. So about 3 weeks later, Jack came in and placed another order after he got off the road for some more banners. And this time, he knew we closed at 5 o'clock. So he sent his son in to pick up the banners at 4:45. So Mark came in, paid for the banners, and when I went out to the parking lot, I rode my 12 speaks. I lived that close to where I worked. Mark was sitting there in Jack's van and said, "Hey, Casper, my dad wants to talk to you. Get in." And I went, "No, I'm busy. What do you want?" He goes, "Put your bike in it. My dad wants to talk to you." And I said, "No, I don't want to talk to your dad. Tell your dad I said my love." He goes, "Hey, seriously, Casper, my dad wants to talk to you. There's a lot of people out there. He told me not to come back unless I came back with you. Please do me the favor." And he pulled out this big giant joint and said, "My dad said to get in the car. He wants to talk to you, please." So I put my bike in Jack's car and I got in the front seat and said, "All right, but I want to be home by 8 o'clock and nothing funny better happen to my happy ass."
Then you got home like 2 days later.
And that's when I got out there. And then when I first walked in the door, Jack goes, "There's my new office manager." And he kept talking me until I finally raised my hand and said I go to work for him.
Power manifestation.
And
I found that video that I was telling you about.
He
I found that video I was telling you about. It's awesome. You gotta check this out. Wait, you can hear your voice in it. It's hilarious. This is my first piece of content on the Hip Historians podcast network that I made. I had a couple of them, but Jack, I did a whole thing on Jack for like a week on Instagram. I was going in on it. Let me pull this up. Boom. But you'll remember this speech is epic, or this part of your interview. Great question asking in that too. Hold on.
You know we're live, right?
I do know we're live. Look, I am adjusting the television, all right? So it's gonna.
No, I know. We're winging it all the way around. No one's ever done what we're doing, so we're pioneering this whole thing right now. I know.
As
It's not even gonna play
technologically
the.
advanced as we are.
It's not gonna play the sound either.
We're in the string and cups phase.
This is terrible. It's not even gonna play the sound. So this is the deal. Like whenever people started converting over, as a brand strategist, I'm converting everybody online. And I thought I knew what Zoom was until this project came, right? Like I just been using it to consult my clients one-on-one. So I thought I was a freaking pro, and it turns out I am not a pro at Zoom, right? and so Zoom has all these extra features and this and that. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? I stopped in on the Zoom the other day, and these kids that were doing this podcast down in Austin, they're actually gonna come by tomorrow. Come by. I like that. Like we're just chilling at the house. I feel like we're just having a smoke session at the house. Really, it's kind of cool. On a side note, but they were playing games and they had like all types. They were playing like shots games and like pass the joint and like they had all types of new age virtual reality, artificial intelligence shit that I was like, I don't know, man. It's kind of cool when you can chill, but it's just weird how technologically advanced we are now. I think I'm hitting this hemp too hard too. It's crazy. I'm gonna send you guys out to this flower. Gary, I can't send anything out to you, huh?
Well, what is that? Hey, tell me, man. What's the hemp flower like? Is it smokable? I mean, does it taste like? Is it like?
It's
hacky?
wonderful.
Really? Is
No,
it nice smoking?
It's like anything. If you get some really dirt weed, then you're not gonna be impressed. But if you get some bomb weed, you're gonna be like, oh, that's good weed, And so I came from the source. I was lucky enough to enter the industry at the top of it. So I was hanging out with manufacturers and farmers and growers rather than hanging out with the retail cats that just took some CBD once and liked it and got a store, And so I was brought into it the right way when people were still paying $2.50 for a pound of hemp flower. I was paying like $1.50, and they're like, you don't. It's got to suck. And I'm like, it's actually hemp keef if you want to get specific, And it's like, it was really cool because when you notice that you have a good supply chain, you can start then stowing your oats and you know where to look for it, right? And like, so this stuff here, I found this is called Cherry Advocates, and keep in mind, hemp strains are young. A lot of these strains, when we were talking about Ernie the other day with that Granddaddy Perp, he was like, that's an old strain. That's 15, 20 years of genetics, that are there with that strain, but they're turning into Monsanto style weed. Whereas we're only 4 or 5 years in on the max number of hemp strain, right? And so you look at these guys, they're like, well, I got to get down to 0.3 THC. And it's like, well, you've been growing that strain, which has naturally occurring more than 0.3% THC for a year. You've only bred it like once, and you're expecting your crop to go down. It's unrealistic expectations. you know? It's actually kind of crappy when you think about it. Am I not being shown right now? I'm turning myself on because I'm making some valid points. So anyway, this this I don't know where's the camera at. Okay. Good.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I can say that Jack, envisioned something a little differently. It's a funny little story, just a very short story, right? The Oregon regulators in the very beginning of the hemp being legal out there went out to look and really expected to see like fields of hemp plants being grown for fiber and fuel and everything like hemp, like Jack described, and instead found greenhouses with bud all trying to grow CBD. And I don't think the guys back then at all, I know the guys that are around today did not see it coming, didn't ever see people smoking hemp. So growing very high CBD hemp, growing flower that's really pretty and smokable hemp, and having it be such a low THC. If you'd gone up to anybody, back in the early 70s and late 60s and said, hey, I got this bud here from cannabis that has almost no THC in it at all, that's good and smokable, they'd be like calling you, they'd be like, you got to prove that, you know what I mean?
It's about the same potency. From what I got, a lot of old school hipsters that come here and they're like, back in the Gap, man, this reminds me of this. He's like, my son got me some weed, and I was hiding in my bushes for 2 days. My nephew bought me a dab, and I've been fucked up for a week and a half. I can't move. And they'll come in here all types of shit, and they come out, and hemp flowers they're starting to get diverse. And I kind of kept my niche on the fact that most people had 1 or 2 strains, and they all had the same strain. If you go to a head shop in most places, besides the places that are legal. And the places that are legal have terrible CBD. Like everybody's always like, I get my stuff from Denver usually. And I'm like, Denver has shitty ass CBD. So does California. Like they don't appreciate the CBD market there. Like CBD is gonna, in my opinion, and this is half the reason why I'm really all in on just hemp in general, but why I approached it CBD is because you look at 20% of people use or have used, right, in America, right? So you got 1/5 of the population. But what percent of the population is taking daily Advil or taking or getting pregnant or having any type of chronic illness or chronic pain, right? That doesn't smoke pot. You got 80% that are available, right? And then you got another 20% that smoke who are already open to cannabis. So you potentially have 100% market penetration. You can't have that because of kids, but you could legitimately have a 60% market penetration, which is well more than a 20%. And when I started realizing that, not everybody wants to get high, but people do want to get healthy, and I started living like a really holistic style. I'm not a hippie, and that's why I guess I am now. I was doing yoga for the last 3 weeks, living out in the field. So I guess I am kind of a hippie, yeah. And I'm turning into a proud hippie. It's nice, but I think that there's a mix there with counterculture that they're starting to realize that if we can come up with a really good cannabis, right, like a really just perfect level, that's appropriate for the user, almost like blended for your own genetics, you know what I mean? Then you can get what you need, whether it's CBN, whether it's CBG. They're starting to find out they're doing CBG flower now, no CBD whatsoever. You know what I mean? Which is genetically modified too. They think when they take one molecule out of this plant that's perfect, you're going to make it stronger, and that's not the case at all. It doesn't work like that. And so Anyway, I'm gonna actually see if I can find this video elsewhere. I got 5 devices right now going. It's crazy, and I can't play
I've had a date tell me that before.
That she has 5 devices.
Yeah.
He has 5 devices.
And the police come back in the morning, don't bother, right?
Oh, well, it looks like you guys are fine here.
You guys should bear in mind what a special treat this is for me, because I'm listening to anecdotes about people I've been reading about and hearing about for decades.
I was wondering if you thought we were half crocked or what,
No, this is...
One of my stories about Jack Hare I love, and everybody who knows Jack Hare can tell, is that Jack had this van that was pretty much famous for being Jack Hare's van. And I picked up Jack's habit. Everywhere Jack went, Jack had a bowl in his hand. And I'm kind of like the same way. I mean, when I die, it'll be a bowl in my hand, right? And so we just kind of got used to that. So when Jack would leave town, get on the airport and fly out of town, the first thing I and anybody else who was in that van would do is to start tearing the hell out of that van looking for every bud that he dropped. Because Jack Hare dropped more marijuana in the carpet of his van than most people smoke in a year. And I tell you, you can find an ounce of marijuana just going through Jack's boxes and seats and ashtrays and floor and anything, anywhere that Jack was at. Pot fell out of his pocket, fell out of his shoes, fell out of his hair.
You sure y'all weren't doing meth?
No, I'm serious. I'm serious. You could go through Jack Hare's car and find an ounce of marijuana in just the carpet.
It's just his rolling style and just the way he was. He was flamboyant, and the bud just would start flying.
Yeah, look, I'm all about that life. Like, I aspire to be Jack Hare, and now, really, if I play my cards right, I have like Jack Hare's like right hand people accessible to where I can, just
Jack was ahead of his time too. Jack only went to restaurants where he could, after he got done eating, fire up his bowl.
Ooh.
He didn't care if it was illegal. He didn't care if they were outlawing people. He didn't care. His attitude was he was buying dinner there. He was spending it with his wife and his family. And he came in to sit down and relax. If he can fire up, he'll be there in a lot. If he can't fire up, he'll never come back again. And it blew my mind that there's a few times we go into a really highbrow restaurant in Los Angeles that was kind of crowded. And when Jack got done eating, without any hesitation, he just... And the waiter would come over and fill up our drinks, and somebody else would come over and take our place. No one would say shit to Jack, because they knew that's all right. That's just Jack. Yeah. And everywhere he went, he had a pipe in his hand and a pot in his pocket, and watching Peanuts. And that little guy who's always full of dust.
We have 10 minutes, guys. 10 minutes. So next 4:20.
Everywhere Jack went, marijuana just fell out behind him. I don't know where it came from. I don't know how he got there. I don't know what it was. At Christmas time and at holidays, he would give you candy boxes. You open them up, and it wouldn't be candy in there. There'd be little nuggets, and on the little where the candy should be. So you'd have like 30 different nuggets, 40 different nuggets, one for each day. I mean, he knew how to give gifts. He knew how to make amends, and he knew how to make you feel important. So I love Jack. And we went down a few roads together, and he learned not to tassel with me because I mean what I say, and I say what I mean, and he respected that.
Hey, do you ever see Keith Strop from Normal? Was renowned for doing that. I was with him at least once, if not twice, when he did the same thing. I was never with Jack when he did that. Just lit up a joint. Keith would light it up and hand it to the waiter and try to get the whole place involved. For him, it was like, yeah. I think it was only a true win to Keith if he got the whole the restaurant involved in it. You know?
I love Keith. Keith, he had a laugh with me. His first encounter with me when Jack Hare had me send some kind of message off to National Normal to Keith Strop. And about 2 days later, Jack's on the phone going, I hear Jack going, yeah, huh? No, he's new. No, he's only been here a couple of weeks. Yeah, well, no, I'm teaching him. No, he's got a lot to learn. Yeah, I know. Okay, I'll tell him. He came over, he goes, Casper, I know you spell normal, Normal, but nobody at NORML does.
Oops.
And so that was Keith Strop's first experience with Jack's new assistant, Casper Leitch.
He spelled normal normally.
Yeah. So I was that ignorant to the movement when Jack hired me on. He just liked my office skills and the way I handled people. And he just said, he said he didn't know what it was, but the ganja goddess said, that man needs to be on my team. And he said I wasn't going to quit till I got you. So he got me.
Yeah, it's funny. Normal for me, I told you about Virginia Tech Normal, but indeed there was no state chapter of Normal at that time in Virginia, and in fact there was no local chapter for the whole 1980s. I guess they just sort of ducked out for a lot of it. But in the 90s it picked up and then it sort of disappeared. I guess very late 80s it picked up and then disappeared, and then in the 90s it picked up again when I came there. And we wound up by proxy being Virginia Normal, and Virginia Normal evidently is what National Normal started as. They started there and then incorporated in DC later, as I understand it. So the Virginia Normal chapter always had this sort of special relationship, sort of still does. Virginia Normal right now has been stellar, successful in all this decrim and everything. The Virginia Normal's been right in the middle of everything and doing a really good job of kind of carrying the weight of the the main movement on this stuff, all going back to like the 1970s continuously. And I don't know a lot of other, I mean, cannabis is my thing. I don't know a lot of other genres of activism, but that certainly seems like a pretty amazing record to pick up. They picked up the mantle. Most people don't know that there was a marijuana movement before Normal. There was indeed, going all the way back to Louis Armstrong, if you want to go back that far. But there was a couple of organizations, Morphia and Lemar. Lemar kind of starting on the East Coast. Lemar, as in legalized marijuana. Lemar. That was the Fugs and Sanders. These guys.
I know I've heard that name in my history search or something.
Yeah. And then on the West Coast, you had this organization that came out called Amorphia. And Amorphia picked up John Sinclair. John Sinclair was a powerhouse on his own out in Michigan with the White Panther Party and Trans Love Energies and just all kinds of different activism and activity that came out of there, all connected. And at a time there, around 1970, everything came to a moment where it was all focused on John Sinclair himself. He was facing 10 years in prison for just a couple of joints, like a third strike deal in Michigan. And that movement, that entire movement of Morphia and all that sort of gets lost today. But a lot of its big accomplishments, which was one offshoot of it, was the Fitzhugh Ludlow Library, which came out in San Francisco and brought out of obscurity hundreds of books that had a lot of the information that we look at, the history of cannabis throughout the ages and hundreds of years of research and study of how cannabis was used was all obscured by history, and they brought it back. And that was presented to Nixon's commission, the big Schaefer Commission on Drugs, which recommended decriminalization. So, we sort of have this big success from this early movement, and that was handed off to Normal, which Normal sort of brought it to DC. Normal was working with Ralph Nader with a little bit of money from Hugh Hefner and Playboy. And they did a really decent job. At the time of Carter, before the meltdown, as I understand it, Normal had an office space inside the Carter's White House. You could actually find the marijuana office in the West Wing. I mean, we haven't gotten anywhere near back there yet. That's even under Obama, we didn't even come anywhere near that. So that's that's a high goalpost to get back to. But hey, you're back there, man. Anybody on we're coming up on Australia, I think, here, aren't we, right now?
I just sent you a link. I sent you a link. Nandor is being interviewed at 420 in Sydney. If we can take their feed, it's on.
Oh my God! Can we do it? Can we do it, please? Can we do it?
Can we take their feed and put them up on our feed? I don't know.
Oh, by the way, our YouTube feed is gone. I don't know what happened. We're live on Facebook, but we're not live on YouTube.
Yeah. Okay. Well, tell me where we're live. Send me the chat with the link. Oh, that's the Facebook page. I can share that page. Is that your Facebook page? The Time for Hemp.
Time for Hemp live.
I'm trying to get Martell on the.
Well, the thing is, I can actually put that it's a webinar that Nandor is on, and we could probably share it to Time for Hemp.
No, we actually can't.
Can
you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. I can hear you.
We're so not through those means anyway. We have to.
Oh, you're doing the stream, aren't you, Martell?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're doing the same thing tomorrow when Keith's going to be on, and so me and Jax were figuring it out up till early in the morning. Luckily, she called me back just a few moments ago, but We got Keith coming in tomorrow. Right after him is Eric, and then Eric Altieri, he's the new executive director over there, and then we got Representative Joe Woody. He'll be on right after that. That's a big hour. Kyle Turley comes on right after that, and then just oh my god, it's gonna be so good. I'm already excited. I'm sorry.
But the YouTube channel doesn't seem to be showing the YouTube channel what's going on.
It's not showing. And so what the complicated I've run into is that I can't figure out how to get them both Facebook and Facebook and YouTube. Every time I click one, it doesn't allow me to do the other one. And so I put in a support ticket like 20 minutes ago, and they're supposed to be writing me back soon.
All right.
Like I said, we're pondering around what software to use. So, but one of my buddies actually just sent me over some music that he was made for us. They did this event called, you guys have heard of Coachella before?
Called what?
Music festival, Coachella.
Yes, we have heard it.
So he's been doing a music festival called Coachella.
Okay.
Yeah, tell me, super clever, right? This is one of my favorite guys on the whole planet, but he just sent me some content. It's right on time too. Actually, it's a little bit late, but it's probably going to be worth it. I know this to be shared for sure. So let's see here.
It's 18 minutes past the hour.
Oh, we got 2 minutes. I'll wait. I'll wait till after.
Could you give me the link for the Facebook page that it's streaming on, please?
And that should be the Time for Hemp live on Facebook.
Time for Hemp live. Okay.
I got
on the.
Thank you.
Okay.
You go to Facebook / time for the number 4
minutes past the hour.
So we're coming up on 420 in some interesting places here. Looks like Papua New Guinea, Guam, USA, where America's Day begins.
But shortly, this is Sydney. We're in Sydney for this one.
Yeah,
I've been in Sydney. Oh, you mean the country? Never mind.
Yes.
Yeah. No, the other
country.
Australia. Australia is freaking huge.
Light it up. Smoke them if you got them.
Cheers.
It's 20 after.
Happy 420, Australia.
The last time I was in a gym, let's see. He moved to Arizona to live with his parents.
Oh my gosh! So listen, I was at a one day I was on a really hardcore acid trip, right? And I was going to these high-end hotels because I had money. I was just like, I was out in the street like wandering for like hours, but I looked like a hobo by the time I'd been out there in this Texas heat, right? And so I rode in there and I'm like sweating. I got like my shirt coming off, but I'm all like super proper. I'm like, I need to get a room now. And they start checking me in because I'm a platinum member there. So they start checking me in. I'm like, this is working. And as soon as I get checked in confidently, I'm like, do you guys have a gym here? And they just start laughing at me, right? Because they're like, this guy doesn't go to the gym. Like, I'm in there with my eyes bugged out of my head. Like, I got one sock on, you know? And they're like, no, gym doesn't work here anymore. I'm sorry. Gym's gone. And I was like, you assholes. Like, I just lost it. I ended up going upstairs and complaining on them. And I got like 250,000 free hotel points because I don't even complain on anybody. I thought it was really funny too, but I was like, I'm going to use this opportunity of getting roasted at this hotel in order to get some free points. So it was good.
There's been a few times when I've woken face down on a mat too.
Yeah, Matt who? I get it now. See, I catch on quick. You guys will see. Okay. All right, so we're after the 20. I'm going to play this concert now.
Jokes.
When I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is have a cup of Joe. Then Joe gets dressed and goes to work, and then I get out of
Oh, that's awesome.
No Joe jokes either.
I can wake up and have a cup of Joe. That is hilarious.
So it's 2:21. Our friends out in the mountain.
What the hell?
Well, see,
what is it? Mountain Standard Time.
But you can't get the Jack Hare video up, and you can't get the Peter thing up.
You can get your own. You can get your podcast there. Yeah. So
right.
So my first podcast episode didn't even come out. I can't do anything on this.
And I'm surprised that you couldn't get the Peter thing up. I mean, as young as you are, you should have been able to at least do that.
Oh man, come on, no Peter jokes either.
All right, fine.
No, that I mean you're right. I should. That's why I paint broad strokes. I usually pay people for this stuff. Get a
But you're
budget.
supposed to be able to put you said that we're going to be able to have these great roll-ins and just dazzle people. So let's have the great roll-in and let's dazzle some people.
All right, here I go.
I don't hear anything, but it sounds like somebody's talking to a 1940s walkie-talkie, you know. Oh, we're going to be jumping back here.
Yeah,
You would know. You would know that was the walkie-talkie
know.
he played with it when he was a teenager.
I was. You're right. Oh, yeah. So he gets that right, but he can't
Look
get.
at that. Doctor can do it.
Just thought I'd show you our club rooms.
Thank you. Please do.
It's our club rooms in New Zealand.
Nice.
I don't know what Dropbox is doing there. Who did that one?
Oh, he's going to show a video, maybe. I don't know. Looks like maybe.
Click the button.
Oh,
Yeah.
hang on.
Like a button.
Let
I
me.
love it.
Let me.
So these
This is
gentlemen are in
great.
Dallas, Texas.
Well, how come you couldn't show Peter's video like that? I can't hear anything.
I can't hear anything either, and that's what's pissing me off real good.
You're supposed to be able to share this. I shared my video on my end, right?
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you just watch the screen though.
Well, remember at the start of the show, didn't I do the little music video?
Yeah, I wonder why it's not letting me turn it up higher.
Were you able to hear it? Were you able to hear it?
Yours? No. I mean, I could hear it a little bit.
Oh, well, then that's true for our audience. Then. It's not good for them if they can't hear it or see it.
Yeah, so
I
that's
have
why
a
it's
lot
good
of
for
roll-in
doing this
material.
now.
You might have a lot of roll-in material that we might not be able to use for this live broadcast.
Well, I think it's more so of a settings thing than anything else.
Well, I hope so.
I would hope so too, because if it's not, then everybody's screwed.
I know that when I went to share my video, I was given the option to share my audio sound, my computer sound, to enhance the video for the audience, and I clicked on that, and that seemed to be pretty groovy. But that's when I was sharing it in my browser, you know, sharing the content in my browser.
Yeah.
So, but I thought you had this figured out. I don't know.
I thought I did not, and so I'm glad you were confident. That's cool.
Yeah.
I got it connected, so that's a good thing.
What
But-
are we looking at here? Is this yours, Dakta?
No,
Okay.
Oh, this is yours? Okay.
I'm gonna post this in the link, and maybe I'm gonna post this in the chat, and then somebody else play it. See if it's just my device, because I got
Okay.
like 15 devices I'm working from right now. So, post this in the chat. Boom.
All right, Dakta, you want to try to play it?
The share. Well, I'll play that one. Okay, I can do that. Hang on.
Drop.
So you got Martell, you got to close yours out so he can open his up.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave you to it for a while, guys. I've got to go and eat and feed my
I
cats.
hope our
I've got
audience
toppings
is
done.
high now. They realize that we don't have the NBC team here.
Nice to meet you, Gary.
I'll be back soon.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so that's sent. Close. Boom. Stop share. All right, perfect. Woo! That was a whole lot of nothing.
All right, Dakta, can you play that video?
Which one?
The one that was in that was sent to you in the chat.
Okay. All right,
Sounds
I'm
like
gonna
a
share it.
bomb.
I'm going to share it with you, right?
Yeah, do that.
Share the screen. Hang on. Here we go. There we go.
And share the sound.
Yeah, no, it's all going to come on. I'm just getting it ready to share, and here we go.
If I get showed up by this old guy,
Ouch.
go full screen. Right.
Is that working all right?
Yeah. Seems to.
Dollar bill, y'all for that no. I left quarantine to see you. Can't fuck around with the team.
Hey, I see Dakta.
Dollar bill, y'all cream my new friends. Dollar bill, y'all for that no. Get to the boiler, so I'm the boy. Sauce in the pot and it's about to boil. Cooking
Hey.
with something I'm cooking, you pop it, I'm whipping on some of this gratitude. Name it a whole different category. Cover the scissors on Attaboy. Go get them tiger IP rappers like I'm a tiger and they will just flip to me. Carol Baskin, Robert Dollar, you niggas. I get the school. See the steps I'm making, try to follow you tripping. Let's take your shoes first. All I put up was like 5 little snippets. Make more than new merch. That's just make my music out like they crippin'. They got the blues hurt. I'm all on your head, that's some hood.
Oh. Oh.
Oh, that was good too.
Oh, I might have an
Currently
internet connection
experiencing
problem.
Technical difficulties. It is not
Right.
your set. Please
It's a-
stand by. We will
A
have the
buffering problem, I'm sorry. Our internets all over the world are being stretched to their limit at the moment.
That's not a thing. Bandwidth is forever abundant. Now, these kids, on a side note, I was at this art show and these guys were out rapping by a campfire. It was a Halloween event. So everybody had on costumes, and I had on like a 4-piece suit, right? and I was so hot, and these kids were out there rapping by this fire, and they were just so good. And this fire was so hot because I had this damn suit on, so I'm sweating my ass off. But they're so good, I can't leave. So I'm just like, man. So they hit all the senses. The more senses you can hit when you talk to somebody. Like right now, we're entertaining our sense of smell when we're smoking with each other. So that's hitting senses. We're touching stuff while we're on the phone together. So that's touching stuff, sound, voice. And so, this will resonate a lot more than if you're not smoking on a Zoom,
Oh, yeah.
And so it'd be highly memorable for those reasons. So I've hit him up. I hadn't talked to him, I don't think, since that party. I called him. I was like, man, I've been following your stuff. I was like, please send me some songs.
Shall I hit go again?
Please.
I make it spasm like Charlie horse. I look at that brown, I see nothing but pink like a baby shower when it's not a boy. Suffer back karma for. We finish my dick like almond joy. Wipe it up, walk away, don't even talk to me, baby. Blow job like she not employed. We ain't the same, don't even get common call when it rain. What did you saying? I was finessing shows before I played them. Give me a break. Been out of work since like 2015. I made a way. My rent got paid by any means necessary. Cop a tab. I left quarantine to see a boo thing.
Yeah.
So you know what I need to do? I need to jump off for a sec. So let this set run. They did 3 songs. I'm gonna fix these videos that I got because that's why I jumped off in the first place and get this done.
You need to get those ready to stream yourself.
Yeah.
On the platform. Not share page. My internet's failing me today.
Hey, it's better than your country,
Hey, we're on the verge of being the first country to defeat COVID. Pretty cool.
Yeah. We're gonna talk about this later, Dakta.
Yeah. Your microphone's not working.
Mine isn't?
No. There you go.
I'm on. Yeah, I have my mute shut, so make sure we don't get any echo back or back sound.
Oh yeah, probably should mute them whenever I'm putting it on whatchamacallit too. That's good stuff, yeah. But by tomorrow afternoon, luckily, thank God, Joshua's going to show, and Joshua got some good stuff. I just want to kind of frame exactly what we kind of got going later, as far as it goes. So we got a wide portion. I think why this is epic, we have a wide portion of doctors, right? Let me get my camera going here. All right, so we got like a wide portion of doctors, right? Like probably more than you're going to see at most 420 festivals anyway, right? I think we had 15. We had enough for 3 panels, so we had like 9 or 10, 3 panels of 3, and they range from RNs all the way up, right? And they also range from activists of 10 or 15 years to 30 years, which is awesome too, right? So you got that mix. Then you got the artists, and the artists who came through from all different types of variety. But my buddy coming up at 7 a.m. when it hits 420 in that Italy, France, South Africa range.
Right.
So he went and got the lawyer that had got a pot charge in South Africa that fought his own case, and now he has like one of the biggest practices out. His name's Ra Gareth Seth. Cold-blooded. So he came out. He's like famous over there. He's like Dakta in South Africa, right? So he's coming. Tony Budden from Emporium. So he's the first one in America to start selling hemp clothing. He lives in an all hemp house now, completely hemp house. He grows all hemp. When he went on lockdown, he was like, "Hey, everything I got is sustainable. I can go pick. I can make some hemp seed oil. I can come back in. I can smoke. My house breathes for me."
He should have a sponsor.
He is. He's giving away a couple of hemp hampers.
Cool.
And so, so he's been out there for a while, and they've been fighting a good fight too. It's just about the same as New Zealand and South Africa. I can't even send him a tincture unless it has under 0.22 or under 0.25 or 0.25 in it, which is crazy to even think about, right? 0.3 is ridiculous, but still. And so he's coming on. They got Farid's coming on at that same time. Farid coming on, and that's Michael's buddy. So Michael, make sure you're around for that as well too. But it's gonna be bananas. They got a nice little time zone there, for real.
I'm gonna step away from the camera for just a minute, but I'm still listening.
Do your thing. I need to do some yoga. Okay, here we go. So turn this off. I really want to. I hope they write me back about this so I can get them on both threads. So, Michael, while we're waiting, how many times have you spoken in front of the UN? Is that a lot different than speaking on the local level, like when you go to like a legislator? You're probably on mute.
Were you talking to me?
No, I was talking to Michael. I think he's on mute.
Okay.
Yeah, he is. He might be doing something though. Okay.
I
See if I get these videos. This is what I'm going to do.
I've just posted on the Dakta page to that the live thing's happening now, and that they should join us. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you should totally put on your opening song. your long one. Let me fix this thing up real quick so we start running these videos. Because Casper, I know you'll blow your mind on these videos, man. Such good stuff. Okay.
I could play 5 minutes of that Hotbox movie.
Hotbox. Oh yeah, you can do that.
It's a 10-minute long, but I'll start it halfway in, just about when we started.
How much pot did y'all have on that?
Eh?
How much pot did y'all bring with you on that bus?
How much what?
Oh, weed. I don't know what you call it, some like dainty like sticks or something. What's your slang for weed out there?
Yeah, no, we call it weed as a regular name for it here, but DAC is a regular nickname for it here too.
Really?
Yeah, DAC, D-A-K. Yeah, that's where I got my name from.
It makes sense.
DAC, it became it's a unique nickname for cannabis in the world. Quite unique. It's unique to New Zealand. We're the only country in the world that uses the word DAC as a nickname for cannabis.
Well, not anymore, you're not, because I'm about to start using it.
Yep, we're going around the world having a DAC. Okay. Are you ready for this?
Yep.
Shall I share the screen?
Yes, please.
Okay. Here we go. Here we go. 82. Anybody else? This is we're about to start. The background is this is our bus. This is 10 years ago, and it's when we broke the world record. 84 people smoking in a bus. Everybody had to have their own joint. 83. So that was 83, and then I stepped on, and I was number 84.
Sometimes it's all these people sitting on their high horses, looking down on us for smoking the plant, growing the plant. Well, I believe in nature, fellas. I just want to be free.
My favorite song. I'm proud to be a stoner. I'm proud to be a stoner. Ha ha ha.
That's fucking awesome.
This is what 84 people look like in a bus, all with their own joint. Yeehaw!
Trying to get a record deal. We get signed. I was broke with no money because I was back in 95. I'm proud to smoke weed and I'm proud of what we done. I'm proud of the kings and I'm proud of everyone. I'm proud when there was D-Luck, no joke, son. And I'm proud when I'm a dad, when I have a daughter or a son. I just want to live my life.
That was coughing on demand there. We're speaking Dakta talk. Ha ha!
Time when the work is done, you celebrate my worship in the earth and sun. We always give thanks for life and the gifts. The higher you climb is always the higher you get. When you gotta disconnect from all the pressure and stress. It's not for me, I wanna be free and live in peace. Come on. From the mountaintops to the green roads, to the green valleys down below, strong mountains and the rivers flow. I just want to live my life. The tree is growing, the air is clean, it's free to do a thing. I just want to live my life. I'm proud to be a star. 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 Yes, I am. Another version of life lived, a different set of means, another way of thinking, a different kind of me. A brand new religion, one that's never been rehearsed, but it's cursed, and this curse can mean the end of this earth. So many people worry about the church, it doesn't kind of interest. The best we could, but we know that we did it. It's getting crazy, summer stops when it's freezing, hurricanes getting stronger, taking up the southern region, big fires taking lives, yo, it's pure destruction.
Auckland has broken the world record. That's brilliant, mate. Amsterdam had the world record until now. They got that the day before J-Day, and now Auckland, Dakta members, hold the new world record. Let's hear it for Dakta Green for organising this bit, man! Well, there you go. That was our bus.
That rocked. Bunch of hippies,
Yep.
bunch of pot smoking hippies.
My favorite song, Proud to be a Stoner. Now, if we weren't on American networks, I would actually use a very forceful 4-letter word right then, but I won't.
What just popped up?
I'm not sure. Here we go. Well, look at that.
Hey, there's Al. Can we hear you? Hey, you can see me better, Casper. I improved my lighting.
Well, was that Al? I didn't see him.
I saw Al for a second.
Well, I didn't hear him.
Here we go.
I took a page out of Michael's book. I'm eating on camera.
I'll be eating more in a second myself. Hey, right now we're about 20 minutes out from California. Is still yesterday. So in 20 minutes or so,
Yeah.
in 20 minutes or so, California will be today from our perspective.
Yeah, the what, 4:20 a.m.
It's
Yeah,
Mark.
yeah. They'll be just 0:00:01 a.m. on the day 4:20. They'll have a ways to go before they'll get 4:20.
Okay.
We're somewhere out in the mountain time, just turning midnight, somewhere in the mountains of the USA
Okay.
as the world turns.
It's funny how that happens, isn't it?
I
Somebody
love
told me it was something to do with science.
I love it.
I thought it was God that held us up there. I'm not sure.
You want another Jack Harris story, Casper?
Yeah.
So excuse me. So I this thing still won't switch over to me. It doesn't want to put me on full screen for some reason. Still not enough light for it. Maybe I don't know. But yeah, I was out there. Remember I was talking about how I went out to Europe and was on this big trip that I wasn't able to take in the military, and I wound up taking it on my own. And
Right.
while I was in Amsterdam, I got to visit what's called the Drugs Peace House, which was something that they were doing there in Amsterdam with Chris Conrad had introduced me to the Bronkhorst brothers, Adrian and Franz, I think, and Adrian Bronkhorst. And these guys had created this Drugs Peace House, and on Wednesday night they were going to have a marijuana meeting. So I'm all excited to go to this marijuana meeting. I'm going to tell them about all this really cool stuff I'm doing in Virginia and how interesting it is and how important it is, you know, and everything. I sit down and Jack Harris there, Chris Conrad's there. I forget who else. He was. What's his name now? Does the movie stars and Todd McCormick. He does the movie stars and actresses and actors thing for medical marijuana.
Right.
Anyway, Todd McCormick was there. But by the time they went around the room and everyone told their story and they got to me, I was just dumbfounded. I couldn't believe all the stuff that they were into, what I just heard and learned. I was absolutely starstruck. And that was my first meeting, you know, with Jack Herr at a marijuana meeting, on a Wednesday night meeting. Quite an experience to be had.
I bet. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I wasn't sure if my mic was muted or not, you know, so that's why I was curious. Hi, Al. How you doing? Well, I saw Al, but I didn't hear Al.
Peter's there.
There you go. There you go. Is that a video or is that something really happening? Al looks like this.
Doing the robot dance.
Right.
Hey, I need to do an audio check here. Can I talk about like that? Can you still hear me good?
Yeah, I can still hear you fine.
Okay, I'm going to talk a lot lower, I promise. Right now it's 2:47 a.m. where I am, so I got yelled at.
I don't know if Al's talking or not. I can't hear him. And I see another person there, and I can't hear them.
What do you say there, Martell? The Wednesday night marijuana meeting.
A lot of dead air here, people. I'm not sure if we're keeping our audience.
Sorry, everybody.
You know, we've got 3 people watching us live on Facebook.
Well, that's cool. Hi, people.
I think 2 of them are my extra cameras.
Oh.
I've got to get me from all angles.
Well, one way or another, we got to keep it going. I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
I had to have
Who is on screen at the moment here? Who is doing this?
I think that's Martell trying to do a roll-in.
Is it?
I think so. Yeah.
On a share screen.
There.
Oh, yeah, no, there he is.
Now he's frustrated. We can't figure out how to get the roll-ins in. And he's on mute.
Oh, yeah.
So that way we don't hear him cuss.
Dakta, can you pull up the live feed in Australia and plug it in for us, and we'll just go off your screen?
My feed is in New Zealand, but
Yeah, that's a mistake.
Facebook.
That's a mistake we're not going to make here between New Zealand and Australia for sure. But it's it's Australia's time zone right now. We're in.
It's happening now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's live streaming. What we're doing here at the moment is live streaming. It's lagged, of course, but it's working. And there's 4 people watching live now.
Oh, cool. Hello. Are there any questions? Are they texting any questions that we can answer?
No, I don't see any place for them to ask questions.
Oh, I thought maybe on Facebook they might be sending questions there.
No, not on the. I'm looking at Facebook, but it doesn't appear to be any place to write. Oh, I suppose I could write something there.
There you go.
I don't know. All right. Well, the feed is still happening there.
So, Michael, is your governor locking everybody down in your state and making the police break up gatherings at churches and arresting people at birthday parties? And
Are they doing that now?
well, in some of the states they are. Yes, there's a few people who've had birthday parties for their kids, and like the grandmothers and the grandfathers get arrested because there's more than 10 people there, so they arrest and then they put the kids in foster care to say that the kids,
Horrible, isn't it?
kids were
Well,
being
because somebody won't actually protect their neighbour's life. Pretty shocking.
well.
You know what's happening in New Zealand?
What?
We've got a huge compliance with the request of our government. We all want this to happen. We're going to be the first country in the world to actually defeat COVID. We've got another week of level 4 lockdown. Then we go to level 3 for 2 weeks. And if we've done it right, we will have eliminated it and be able to get back to normal business. With our borders closed, we're fortunate. We have a moat around our country. We're only 5 million people, but boy, we're going to be in big demand because we produce some of the best food in the world.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. That you do.
There you go. So we're going to be okay. I'm really concerned for the rest of the world, however.
Mhm.
Every day, thousands and thousands of people are dying all over the world. And we haven't even got really to Africa yet. They're only just starting there. It's going to go insane there. They don't have the medical protections. So it's a fairly serious pandemic. Britain's gone in lockdown for an extra few weeks. Oh, here we go.
I'm in Florida. You're in, I guess, Boston area, and Martell is in Central Time. I produce a 420 interview process where we're going around the world to talk to cannabis experts. The gentleman that I have here with me this morning is Dr. Peter Grinspoon. Dr. Grinspoon is at Harvard, and he is the illustrious son of a wonderful doctor named Grinspoon, who wrote a book called Marijuana Reconsidered. Dr. Lester Grinspoon was at Harvard when he did this, and he was maligned in a sense for his pioneering effort to bring the truth about cannabis back to the modern world. And so, Dr. Grinspoon, I welcome you. I revere your father. And we're glad to have you, sir.
Glad to be here. Happy 420.
Thank you very much. And I understand in Boston it's snowing?
It is snowing in Boston. It's supposed to be spring, yet somehow outside it doesn't realize that, and we're getting dumped some snow on us.
Well, I think I told you earlier on, I left Boston around when I was 17 in a snowstorm, and I never really went back. Well, look, we're here to discuss a couple of things today. First of all, we want to make sure that all our friends around the world are in pretty good shape with this virus. We certainly want to talk about medical cannabis, therapeutic uses of cannabis. I'm in Florida. You're in, I guess, Boston area, and Martell is in Central Time, our producer.
Okay, it's actually snowing here, believe it or not.
Snow?
Well, the sound was great, but we couldn't see any image. But the sound was great, at least on my end. Did it sound good on your end, guys?
Yep.
Yeah, sounded good. If you can just get the video going.
So, yeah, you got half the problem solved.
We're halfway there.
I'm in Florida. You're in, I guess. So I am a son of a wonderful doctor named.
Somehow outside it doesn't realize that, and we're getting dumped some snow on us.
Well, I think I told you earlier on, I left Boston around when I was 17 in a snowstorm, and I never really went back. Well, look, we're here to discuss a couple of things today. First of all, we want to make sure that all our friends around the world are in pretty good shape with this virus. We certainly want to talk about medical cannabis, therapeutic uses of cannabis. And I would prefer if you could just give us your background, how you got involved with this issue, and any recommendations you may have as a physician on how to deal with this virus. We'd appreciate it.
Well, those are two very big, broad, and different questions. But so let me start with my background and how I got involved in this issue. And if I forget about the coronavirus question, you could maybe remind me in a couple minutes. But it was sort of impossible for me to not get involved in this issue because my dad was so deeply involved in it. I sort of joke about how I'm 53 years old, but I've been involved in this issue for 54 years because me and my twin brother listened to it in utero. It was so prominent in our household. I mean, literally growing up, there were cannabis activists and cannabis detractors in our living room, either yelling at each other or smoking a joint together throughout my entire childhood. So I honestly can say that I have a lifelong involvement in this issue. And, you know, starting medical school, I didn't go directly to medical school. I studied philosophy in college, and then I worked for Greenpeace for 5 years, you know, sort of chasing nuclear submarines and stuff like that. But then I went back to medical school, and, you know, I was pretty much coming from it from a very, very different point of view. I was really immune to the cannabis is evil propaganda that they sort of dump on medical students in medical school, which is very unfortunate. And I've always been interested in medical cannabis for my 25 years as a physician, both reading my dad's book, Marijuana Reconsidered, which I reread recently, a really amazing book. He actually proves in the final chapter that in 1968, the magazine Playboy was much more accurate in the reporting about cannabis than the Journal of the American Medical Association. I mean, it's really amazing how off the medical community was on the entire issue of cannabis. So I've been involved in medical cannabis my entire career. I work right now as a board member for Doctors for Cannabis Regulation. It's a great group of not just physicians, but mostly physicians working on legalization and working to educate physicians about cannabis, because they've really gotten a very poor education. And as most people know, physicians are sort of behind patients. Patients out of time should know that more than anybody, that the physicians are really lagging behind the patients in terms of awareness of the benefits of cannabis. So not only did I get involved with it because my dad is an expert and I've always been interested in it, but my brother Danny was a medical cannabis patient. He had leukemia, and as a kid, I saw that the only thing that helped him hold down food during his chemotherapy was smoking some cannabis. Now, he ultimately lost his battle against leukemia, but seeing a family member who's suffering and have some of the suffering be alleviated by using medical cannabis, that burns into your memory for life. So again, I started medical school not with a skeptical view of cannabis, but with an understanding that it actually really helps people. And that really informed my medical practice for my whole career up to the present day. So I've always been really interested in medical cannabis.
I'm curious, when you went to medical school with your preformed opinion, how did your classmates think of the therapeutic cannabis potential?
Well, doctors are pretty conservative about cannabis, less now than they were 25 years ago, but they're pretty conservative. Medical students are younger. They're just out of college, so they were more conservative than I was, but not as conservative as like the medical establishment was back then. So they were sort of somewhat open-minded about it, but somewhat critical of it. They were sort of in the in-between area, I'd say.
In our work with Patients at a Time, when we started back in '95, there was then, and there
That's
wasn't.
when I was in medical school, by the way.
Okay. Well, we started back then, and we weren't in medical school, but we sure wanted the medical schools to have therapeutic cannabis information and education, which is why we started our series of accredited conferences to bring that to light. But you're at Harvard now. How does Harvard Medical School treat this issue?
Well, it's really split. How do I put this diplomatically? The medical students are very interested in getting more education about medical cannabis. And a couple of them wrote an editorial in a magazine called Stat, which is part of the Boston Globe, saying this is absolutely ridiculous. You're not teaching us about the endocannabinoid system and about medical cannabis. Harvard in general is becoming much more progressive about this issue. In fact, in the Harvard Crimson last year, the student newspaper, they wrote an editorial called Grinspoon Reconsidered about my dad. As you mentioned, his book, Marijuana Reconsidered, he got up in hot water in Harvard for it, and they never advanced him to he was right about cannabis and you didn't promote him for political reasons. You can't do that. So Harvard's really turning full circle on the cannabis issue.
Do you see your father getting full professorship?
I don't, and he doesn't care at all at this point. But the point is they're starting to airbrush him back in now that cannabis is becoming more mainstream, and it's been really interesting to see. Now, in my hospital, for example, I would say like most departments are becoming more progressive about it. They asked me to do grand rounds in the medicine department, which went really well. It was like standing room only. And, that's really different for Mass General to have, for Harvard to have a basically pro-cannabis event is pretty revolutionary for Harvard. At the same time, I'd say our psychiatry department is still pretty anti-cannabis. The addiction psychiatrists, their bread and butter is to be anti-cannabis. So there's still, it's very factionalized. So there are some factions that are very anti-cannabis and factions that are becoming much more progressive about it. So it's hard to make a generalization about an institution when there are different factions within the institution. Some are much more progressive about it than others.
Well, it's interesting. Your dad was a psychiatrist. Some other very notable doctors of the past, Norman Zinberg and Todd McArea, were also psychiatrists and took a lot of heat. All three of them took a lot of heat for saying the right thing. So it does not surprise me that the anti-cannabis group in psychiatry still exists.
Right, but there are a lot of psychiatrists that are coming around. So again, it's not fair to generalize, but it just seems that, like, in my opinion, that's like the last bastion is the addiction psychiatrist. But I think they're coming around. I mean, reality is reality. And, you could only, I think the consensus is shifting very slowly. And as the consensus shifts, even the people that drag their feet have to move over. So I think we're slowly getting there.
Yeah, well, we are slowly getting there. Our estimate now is out of the 160 or so medical schools, there's about 20 of them now that have training for the young doctors coming in their first, second year or something about cannabis and the endocannabinoid system. But with you here, I have to bring up Carl Sagan. I know he was your dad's best friend. They had a long, very fruitful relationship with each other. And maybe you could tell us what Mr. Sagan thought about all this.
Well, first of all, on my Twitter page, there's a beautiful picture of me sitting on Carl Sagan's lap and him teaching me how to read. So there's a beautiful picture. Yeah, it's a really special picture. The chapter in my dad's book, Marijuana Reconsidered, which was originally written by Mr. X. And then when Carl Sagan died, my dad came public with the fact that Mr. X was Carl Sagan, is just a fascinating and phenomenal chapter. And Carl Sagan writes about how cannabis helped facilitate his creative process. And that is not a small deal. I mean, Carl Sagan is one of the most brilliant people ever to walk the earth. And just to read about how cannabis facilitates his creative process, this is such a beautiful, brilliant, and well-written essay. You just have to Google Carl Sagan essay, Marijuana Reconsidered, and it comes up. And it's such a moving and brilliant essay about how, so Carl Sagan was a huge advocate. And also, I have to say on my Twitter webpage is, on the background right up there, I have this very moving quote from Carl Sagan, which I don't have memorized, but about how outrageous it is that a substance that helps people connect, I'm going to mangle it because Carl Sagan is so eloquent, but about how a substance that helps people connect with our fellow humans is illegal. I mean, it just is crazy. So Carl Sagan was a huge advocate, not only of how cannabis can help us connect with and deepen our creative process, but also how it can help us connect with each other in these dangerous and scary times. And he was just a big advocate. And I also have to say, growing up and seeing people in my living room like Carl Sagan, Allen Ginsberg, all these other like really brilliant luminaries that were doing great things and changing the world, I was seeing that. And in school, we were hearing this bland nonsense from like the DARE program about how cannabis causes amotivational syndrome. And I'm seeing like the most motivated people on the planet smoking cannabis. That contributed to my obvious, deep skepticism of a lot of the propaganda that we were receiving at a very early age. And I think it really helped me learn how to read between the lines.
Yeah, I like that word propaganda. That's exactly what we've been dealing with for a long time. And I can see with your background, which was way different than mine, I never used cannabis until I was 27 years old. And I only did that because my sister said, Al, you need something. I had returned recently from Vietnam and I had post-traumatic stress. I was a mess. And that that night that my sister had handed me a joint was transformative for me. I realized that whatever cannabis was, it was sure good for what I had. And
Wow, that's really fantastic.
Yeah, I thank your father for having the balls to do what he did. And in his time, he stood up when other people would not. And I've always appreciated that because I always felt like he did it for me. I mean, not me, but us, the patients, guys that need it. And I do a lot of work with veterans, doctor. I have for decades now. We have a program on timeforhemp.com called Veterans Voices, where we interview veterans, men, women from all conflicts all over the place. And all of them say the same thing to me. Hundreds of them have said the same thing in my interviews, that without cannabis, they may be dead. Certainly their families would be a wreck. And they bless the plant for what it gives them. It gives them back a reasonable existence. And so with that, let me go to the virus, if we can, Doc. It's serious. We all understand that. It's all over the place. A friend of mine, a nurse practitioner, I'm going to send you this write-up he sent to me because I think you'll be interested in it. But he's had been active on this for years, decades. And right now he contends, is way above my pay grade what he's writing about, but he contends that cannabis may be an effective treatment for the virus for a variety of reasons. Not to cure it, not to keep it from happening, but to minimize its effect once the patient is infected. Do you see that as a possibility? Is there anything in the anti-inflammatory prospects or opening up the lungs that cannabis may help this kind of problem?
Well, I think we have to be really careful what we say about this. And I would say we don't know. Number one. And the second and third thing I'd say is we don't know and we don't know. And we just have to be really careful. Now, people on both sides are sort of using the coronavirus to say it does what they want it to do. The anti-cannabis people are saying, it suppresses the immune system, so it makes the coronavirus worse. And pro-cannabis people are saying, it suppresses the immune system, so it makes it so that the coronavirus doesn't attack the lungs as badly. And I honestly and truly think that it can help people with their anxiety when they're waiting, sitting at home in quarantine, as long as they, use it in small doses and don't take too much and freak out. And I honestly think it can help with symptoms of the coronavirus. If you have nausea, if you have diarrhea, if you have muscle aches. But we just don't know what the effect is on the actual virus. It can be an immunosuppressant, so that would impair the body's ability to respond to the virus. So in that way, hypothetically, it could be bad for our response to the virus. But then once the virus attacks the body, there's something called a cytokine storm, and the virus is out of control, attacking our lungs and our body. Then, hypothetically, it can help with our body's response to the virus. So you could come up with a mechanism in which it hurts our body's response to the virus. And you could also come up with a mechanism in which it helps our body's response to the virus. But the fact is, it's a new virus, and cannabis has never been studied. Neither have any of these treatments. That's why we're fumbling around in the dark, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. So we don't know anything that helps or anything that hurts, which is why we're all in such a panic trying to figure out how to help these people that are on respirators and that are so sick. But we certainly don't know if cannabis helps or hurts. So what we can say is that probably you shouldn't smoke if you can avoid it. Some medical patients need to smoke. If they need to smoke, of course they should smoke. But if you can, try to avoid smoking or vaping, just because the virus does attack your lungs. And if you can avoid irritating your lungs, that's probably a good idea. We don't know if it helps or hurts the coronavirus, but certainly it can help with anxiety, muscle aches, nausea, and diarrhea if used appropriately for symptoms. That's about as much as we can say.
I heard what you said about dose, and we have adopted a slogan, I guess you could say. We say, as far as doses of cannabis is, we say go low and go slow. And I think that is a key no matter what your problem is. If the dosage has to be very much understood, and each individual, as I understand it, has a different dosage level. Is that correct? That we
Absolutely. And the doses for pain tend to be lower than the doses people use recreationally. And you know, the products in the recreational stores tend to be very high THC and not to have much CBD. So, you know, and the most important thing to note is that for anxiety, I mean, I'm just bringing this up because a lot of people are trying cannabis for the first time while they're stuck home in quarantine.
right?
And the dose for anxiety, it can lower anxiety at lower doses and raise anxiety at higher doses. And so starting low and going slow is so important for newcomers, because the last thing you want is them to take a huge brownie and end up freaking out and going to the emergency room and getting coughed on by people with COVID. That's like a very bad situation. So the only way to get in trouble with cannabis is to take too high a dose. I've never had a problem with a patient, except, in fact, I've never had a problem with the patient, I could say, because I'm so neurotic about telling them to keep the doses low and to start up slowly. So if you manage the dose really carefully, you just don't get into trouble. And you just have to avoid, wow, that brownie looks delicious, I'm going to eat the whole thing. As long as you avoid that, you're all set. But it's critical for people to understand to keep the doses low, because that's the way you stay out of trouble.
What's your clinical experience with this, doctor? Have you had a lot of patients that have used cannabis in your time?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Tons. Especially for chronic pain. You know, beggars can't be choosers. We have no other options for chronic pain. Opiates are a disaster. Now, there's some people that need opiates. There's no question, with like extremely severe chronic pain. But in general, opiates are not good for chronic pain. They don't really, people have a really crappy quality of life that are stuck on chronic opiates. They really do much better in cannabis. Tylenol does nothing. We do our best with acupuncture, physical therapy, injection therapy. Non-steroidals will eat away at the kidney. Almost everybody gets kidney failure if you use non-steroidals year after year after year, and they'll give you an ulcer. Cannabis is the obvious choice to try for people with this like arthritic chronic pain as Americans get older and more rotund as the years go by. And, you know, that's why baby boomers and elderly patients are really adopting medical cannabis very quickly. They're the most rapid adopters of medical cannabis. It's because it's the obvious choice for this kind of chronic pain. It's safer than the other alternatives.
I happen to be sitting here with a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, who's a Vietnam veteran who was seriously wounded. He was an Army medic, a combat medic, and he's been on morphine ever since Vietnam. But he rather not. He uses cannabis rather successfully, and when he does, he reduces his opiate level. But we're in Florida, and he still gets urine tested to see what's in his urine. Now, they want to see, of course, that he's using his opiates correctly, and I understand that. But he feels that he has to end his cannabis use prior to the test, so that he will test positive for cannabis, and this increases he has to necessarily increase his opiate use. It seems like the profession needs to understand what you've just explained to us. I don't understand why cannabis is it's so non-lethal as opposed to the opiates, which are killing people every day, one way or the other, suicide or overdose or something. Again, the veterans I talk to are adamant that cannabis is a lifesaver for them.
No, I work with a lot of veterans too, and they say exactly the same thing. And that case that you just mentioned illustrates it's such a failure. If he can lower his dose of cannabis, his dose of morphine, that's a win on every possible level. And the drug testing should not be testing for cannabis. I think we do way too much drug testing in general. And I don't think we should be testing for cannabis at all. I don't see any circumstance ever where drug tests should include cannabis. I have been calling for this far and wide at my hospital, on Twitter, to anybody who will listen, even to people who won't listen. I just don't understand why we test for cannabis. It's not relevant. In your friend's case, it's just not relevant whether there's cannabis in the system. If they want to test for morphine, that's fine, to see if he's taking the drug or selling it. I think we police this way too carefully because, you know, they're just too uptight about it. But if they want to test for morphine, that's fine. If they want to test for other drugs that might increase his chance of overdose, that's fine. I think we do too much drug testing and it's a whole cottage industry. Remember, I'm in recovery from opiate overdose, so I know a lot about this too. But, you know, that I understand, but there's no reason we should be testing for cannabis. It doesn't add anything. All it does is make people take more opiates, like your friend.
Yeah, well, my wife, Mary Lynn Mathry, who you've spoken to, couldn't agree more. She ran for a couple of years, she ran a methadone clinic in Charlottesville, Virginia.
Right,
and
exactly.
she refused. Yeah, she refused to test for cannabis. Got into fights with other folks about that, you know, not fist fights, but got into some really heavy conversations about what you are saying, that marijuana, cannabis is not needed to be tested. It's not a problem, and it should just go away. And it is a cottage industry. A lot of people make a lot of money. The U.S. military is heavily involved in that process. They don't test you for alcohol, and everybody in the military I knew drank a lot of alcohol. But they didn't test for whether you were drunk or not. They tested whether you smoked a joint in the last 30 days or something. It was, to me, it was unrealistic, and the process still is now, and we agree.
I would argue that testing people for cannabis at methadone clinics kills people. Yeah.
1 minute.
Yeah. Doctor, thank you. I would love to have you talk on if you have something else to bring to our attention, but this has been great, informative information. Thank you so much.
Well, I just want to wish everybody a happy 420. And it's just such strange circumstances that we're in, that everybody's locked up and cooped up in their houses. You know, hopefully by next year, this will be behind us and people can go back to going to festivals, which are more fun. And, you know, I just want to encourage everybody to stay at home, to social distance, because a lot of doctors and nurses and respiratory therapists and physicians' assistants are really putting their lives at risk trying to keep everybody healthy. And the thing that everybody can do is stay at home and keep the virus from spreading, because this is a once-in-a-lifetime event. And it's just, you know, it's just really unfortunate. But it's just phenomenal that you guys are doing this and you guys are bringing people together. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much.
420.
Appreciate your involvement, and please, from Mary Lynn and I, both give our best to your father.
I will. He lives right near me. I'll call him up today, and I will give him your best. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
And it's still 420, ladies and gentlemen. Hit your pipe.
Yay! Cheers. Cheers to the Philippines.
Now,
May you
I
get well
don't know
soon.
if I know that when Mary Lynn and Al recorded that yesterday, they were having problems with the recording. Maybe it was maybe the video was choppy because of their recording, but the audio was good, so that is encouraging.
It worked in the end.
Yeah, that we ought to be able to do the roll-ins and get all the information out that we wanted to get out to the audience, just as planned.
Did you see what I wrote? It's 4:20 p.m. in Taiwan, Philippines, China, very western side of Australia.
No, not
Happy
the west.
420. East.
Right through the central of Australia is actually out of kilter with the time zone.
Oh, wow.
It goes from, as you go across the map, there's an hour difference between Sydney and Adelaide, but Adelaide and through the central of Australia are only half an hour difference. But when you follow that same time zone all the way up, Japan is where we've just celebrated. 420 in Japan. We should talk about Japan. I have a member of our club is from Japan, from our club in Auckland. Was a member.
I had a real quick, guys. So thanks for the feedback on the video, but I wanted to ask you guys some stuff before we got too far from that video, because I thought that video was dynamic. I want to get you guys' opinions on some stuff if you didn't mind, because I had some questions as far as it goes, and then we definitely
we'll get back to Japan.
Yeah, for sure.
The audio was great, and the video was choppy.
Yeah, what the content is what I'm more so thinking about at the current moment though. What did you guys?
It's great.
So I'm sure you guys grew up at the same time that was very popular in terms of just pop culture. What was the differential, like him in comparison to like a Jack, right? Like, what was his father's? Was it like more that higher education, or what did he really improve in the industry that we don't know about?
That was kind of hard to say. They were educated. I know Mike's got an opinion on this too. He's getting ready to jump in.
Yeah, man.
Let me just say it from my point of view. I know that when they found each other, it was kind of like Julie Andrews finding Carol Burnett. It was just an odd thing because Jack was so bombastic and crass and straightforward and in your face, and this doctor was very elegant, very learned, very Harvard, and very articulate, and very soft-spoken, and very direct, and really wouldn't say shit if he had a mouthful. And Jack liked to blow pot smoke in front of people's faces, and this doctor really liked to smoke, but not that much. And but when they watched, you got to be together, all that was set aside, and it was like watching two minds kind of melding. Because while Jack was learning from Dr. Grinspoon was learning from Jack. And it was like watching two bright minds bump into each other, each having new information to share. And so the cultural differences made very little difference. And it was like watching, I don't know, two brothers who had grown up, and one went to be a lawyer, and one went to be a carpenter, and they got together and chat. It was like that. They were on equal footing, equal stature. They both had an equal amount of value to offer to the conversation. But boy, did they have two different approaches.
Well, you know, they were from, all three of them. When you're talking about Carl Sagan, when you're talking about Jack Hare, when you're talking about Dr. Grinspoon, they were three different roles. They played very, very significant and very strong singular roles in that time period. And you got to realize that marijuana, as we understand it today, is a whole bunch of different histories all cobbled together, but they were cobbled together in that time period. So like in the 1920s, 1910, 1920, cannabis was front page news. It was something to be studied, something to be understood. Marijuana was a new word that was almost plucked out of obscurity by, you know, these guys, Anslinger and everybody. And it went right from front page news, it went to tabloid, pulp culture, pulp fiction. And from pulp fiction, it rose from the ashes. I mean, you're talking about pulp fiction is the 1930s, 1940s. And then 1950s, 1960s is when cannabis came back from the wars, came back with the veterans, came back with the beatniks and the yipsters and the hippies. And these guys brought back not just cannabis, but as I talked about before, they brought back a mountain of literature and information. And the very first people from the scientific community to pick up on that was Dr. Mikaria. He came out with a article that was published in a journal in like 1964, and that was the Keef on the Reef. The Keef on the Reef. And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Grinspoon was second with 1967 getting published in the Science journal on cannabis and human use. And then Dr. Andy Weil got published. So those three major landmark articles by those major doctors is what brought cannabis back from obscurity. It was based on all the information that we had brought in as a movement, but it was also, I think, very, very importantly, from a Harvard doctor. You know, his place in that trio of initial publications to this day is an important puzzle piece in how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, and for the longest time, Normal and High Times Magazine ignored Jack. I mean, they had a little bit of an approach of, well, everybody knows hemp was foreclosed and hemp, but they just kind of like disregarded it. To them, it was like just not even a relevant topic. And Jack kept saying, no, it's more than just smoking it to get high. And then you had the Grinspoon saying, well, we know it's medical too. And then you had Jack jumping up and down going, well, yes, it's medical, but it's paper, fiber, food, fuel, and all these other things. And because Jack was so loud and bombastic and in your face, they kept blowing him off, and they didn't really give a lot of mind to him until about his third year around the United States. And then High Times Magazine that realized that with Willie Nelson listening to Jack, and Gatewood listening to Jack, and Grinspoon listening to Jack, and all these other people listening to Jack, that maybe Jack had something of value to say. And so, like always, High Times was the last to come on board and the first to take credit. But Jack didn't get a lot of recognition at first because they thought he was dealing with old history that was not important to marijuana. And it wasn't until they realized a little farther down the road that they were tied together. And when you deal with one, you deal with the other. And you can have a pissing contest all day about what you want to call it, medical cannabis or industrial hemp. The first thing you have to call it is illegal. And until it's called legal all around the world, all of you who believe we're dealing with the hemp movement or who believe we're dealing with the cannabis medical marijuana movement need to realize you're dealing with the same movement. And Jack Hare came with that message, and it rattled a lot of trees.
I have said for years that cannabis is a medicine for everybody. If the definition of medicine is something you take to make you feel better, then cannabis is a medicine for us all.
And see, and
Nobody uses cannabis if they feel worse. That's just stupid.
And see,
No, we don't have.
Also a surprise to people. Jack would show up in jeans and a nice tie-dye t-shirt or his learning t-shirt, full beard, long hair, smelling like marijuana. And he knew more about medical marijuana. He knew more about industrial hemp. He knew more about the law. He knew more about the aspects of asthma and cancer and how it worked with the blood. He knew more about medical aspects of your body than you did. And it totally blew you out of the water that this guy who you thought was just some old hippie was actually an intellectual genius who was educating you about how ignorant you are about your own history, teaching you about how you've been lied to by the people who you've trusted, and opening your eyes to a whole new realm of thinking. And when he walks away, you are completely just wow. You learn really never, ever, ever, ever judge a book by its cover. And if you do, make sure the cover you're judging says "The Emperor Wears No Clothes" by Jack Hare.
And that's really why I talk a lot about polarization. Is just because when you transcend the box, right? When the box no longer exists, when people are trying to put you inside of it, then right now we're being conditioned to polarize. Like, oh, that guy's weird. Or, I don't like that guy. Da, 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 right? And that's the first go-to knee-jerk reaction, right? If we're supposed to be coming together and really finding a higher frequency that we all can vibe on, right? The first antidote to that is pot, because you get less polarization in pot. You're more open to any type of antidote whenever you're high, right? You know what? Yeah, I never thought about it like that, And it's like, yeah, it could be a thing, The chance for infinite possibilities that people just have thrown out the window. When you're a kid, everything's possible, right? When you get an adult, it's like, oh no, that's impossible, right? And it's like that's straight bullhorn. It's at any point in time, anything's ever possible, And so, it's always the 10% the hardcore left or the hardcore right that are doing all this talking, and 80% of people just want to be on the same level. They might have a headache, they might have a backache, or they might just want to chill out after work.
Hey.
And Jack and I had something in common. Neither one of us had ever met a stranger, and so anybody we met, we always felt at home with. And it was true with Jack. If he sat down with a senator, if he sat down with a scientist, if he sat down with someone who was a patient who was dying and needed some kind of love and care, if he sat down with a 15-year-old, he was able to meet them on their level and reach them with some new information.
So,
And that's not
Dakta,
always easy to do.
Dakta, you're going to tell us something about, we're about 10 minutes here into the
About Japan.
420 of Japan.
That's okay.
right?
We celebrated Japanese 420.
No, we haven't yet.
Yes, we did. Yes,
Yeah,
we did.
Just
Oh,
now.
We did
yeah,
declare it.
10
We
minutes
did
ago.
declare it.
Oh, I need to catch up.
Okay, well,
Yep,
you can
yep,
feel
go
free
up,
to
man.
catch up now.
I can't.
Oh,
I was
Dakta.
I was in the process of telling you about one of our early members of the club
Oh, please go on. I'm sorry I cut you off earlier.
10 years ago. He was from Japan. I think he's just recently returned with his wife to Japan, but he's worked in New Zealand for many years. He traveled with us in our bus around the country. But we had a connection through him to the Japanese people. And he would often, as we were on tour, give a Japanese narration to whatever it was we were doing at that time, so that he could show his fellow countrymen in Japan what it was that we were striving to achieve. And in Japan, the cannabis controls are much stricter than they are in New Zealand. You still do time. We do time in New Zealand. But just the way they handle it, society frowns on it. It's difficult to sort of come out in Japan and say you're part of the cannabis culture.
Can they get put to death for being involved in cannabis?
No, not in Japan. Not in Japan.
I'm shocked.
Anyway, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, there's no death penalty, but it is a number of years if you're caught. But it's one of those things that it's not seriously enforced because people are pretty good at hiding it. A friend of ours, non-Japanese, had been living in Japan for a number of years, spoke fluent Japanese, had been a teacher of English in Japan. And he said people would have their little grow in a wardrobe and they would take care of themselves, but it was very secretive, much more secretive. So when they have a J Day, or as we call it in New Zealand, or a Million Marijuana March, as it's called around the world, that first Saturday in May, they do celebrate in Japan, and they do come out. But in Tokyo, they might have a few hundred people come out, and that's a population of millions and millions. So it's difficult because of the way it's treated in society. And of course, it's got to become legal in a lot more countries before it gets through that stigma that holds them back. If anything, Japan is behind New Zealand in the process to legalizing. And of course, you guys have jumped ahead and you're doing it everywhere in America. So, it's piecemeal around the world. It's what makes it so difficult. But you guys are who we point to. Why are you more smarter, more intelligent, more worthy of not being locked up for cannabis?
Better looking?
You're no different to us. Well, you're stupider. You've got Trump as a president, but we won't go there because now we'll get political. But the world don't like him, right? You know that much.
I'll say this. I've heard rumors that there's a little bit of a disgruntled attitude towards him from some of the world leaders. That I can admit to.
Oh, and if he's getting it from world leaders, you got to believe that we believe our leaders.
So I will say that there does seem to be grumblings here, grumblings there.
I'm not political. I'm not political at all, but I will say that I've actually heard the opposite. I've heard that there's been no coverage. When he goes there, the people regard him like he is their political leader. They throw parades for Trump. They've had several in Iran. When he comes, they shut the cities down.
Well, no, I did see on the news where he went to, what was it, an Iranian country or just recently, and you're right, the prime minister had like 40 million people turned out to this big event. And when Trump came up, you're right, the whole crowd just went, yay. And I thought, whoa, talk about reverting. That's not, wow, whoa. But yeah, but Doctor, I have heard that there are people on the planet who do have strong opinions towards Donald Trump, some pro and some not so pro.
Yeah, that's true.
But one thing we all do agree on is any politician who outlaws cannabis is a piece of, anyway.
Sure.
Yeah, but wait.
Hey,
He did sign the let hemp law grow in all the states in America. Trump did legalize growing hemp in all America. He has not been cracking down on the medical cannabis avenues. He's even entertained the idea of letting medical cannabis come into fruition. And he's even toyed with the idea of utilizing recreational cannabis as a way of states being able to generate their own revenue and let the states deal with it. So for all of our presidents since Nixon, this particular president, who so many people in the cannabis movement seem to hate, do overlook the fact that he is the one who signed into law all 50 states are now allowed to grow cannabis hemp for paper, fiber, fuel, and medications, and that it is important for us to use hemp to compete with our competition on the world stage. So, like him or love him, I don't care. As far as the cannabis movement is concerned, he moved it forward farther than any of the presidents prior to that. And you're right. That's something that a lot of people seem to really overlook.
Yeah, but like I said, I'm not political, so I'm glad that we have a sensible conversation where most people are just so into it. Like, there's so much other stuff going on in life, besides.
There are other things you can say about him. I know this, but one thing.
No, not him.
Signed that into law.
I've been off him since you finished that last sentence. Is what I'm saying. It's like, but everybody should be that quick. I've literally had family members stop talking to me about politics, and it's like, are you serious right now?
Right.
Like,
so yeah, we need to get off of it. I don't want to lose an audience because we want
to. It's easy to get. It's easy to get.
We do agree on. There's a lot of politicians who have worked to outlaw this plant. And those politicians have been paid for by the pharmaceutical companies, the petrochemical companies. The pharmaceutical
that's something we can agree on.
Flipping out, because if this becomes legal all around the world, really, you can't go into your backyard and plant 5 or 6 of these little plants, and in 6 months' time have all these wonderful flowers that you can either put into food or put into smoke to put into your body to help you feel better and to react better and to move better. And when you do that, you don't need to go pay $35 a pill for something that's got a side effect. Well, this has
you know what?
Munchies.
You know what happens? The best thing is if you put that in your body, they don't put your body in prison.
Thank you. Exactly. And so there's a lot of wonderful things about this plant that being outlawed is just a crime. It's just evil. And it's an evil that we're working to end. And any politician who stands in the way of this and somebody getting it legally for medication, or a farmer being able to grow it so that he can turn around and sell it to a company that's going to turn it into paper, fiber, or fuel and create jobs here in America, well, then I can't see how you would ever tell me that, 1, you're for Americans, and 2, you're intelligent. Because quite honestly, a 12-year-old child can get onto the internet and get onto Google and type in medical cannabis and get 40 pages of information pop right up talking about how it helps with chemotherapy, how it helps with glaucoma, how it helps with cancer tumors. So if a 12-year-old child can Google search and learn more than a 45-year-old politician, well, then we need to retire that 45-year-old politician and get somebody who's smarter than a 12-year-old child to replace him.
Yeah, so those separate. That's when they come with these nicknames like millennials. They start polarizing the old people versus the young. Well, if they work together, you'd have a nice little mix there of experience versus knowledge, and it would add up to something really sexy, in my opinion.
Talking about the millennials, and there's all sorts of different names. Boomer got worldwide publicity recently because of a member of parliament, a very young member of parliament in our parliament, happened to say in passing, "Okay, Boomer," and that comment went around the world. And I'm told by Americans that I've spoken to that boomer is not a complimentary term for old people. But I like the term of okay boomer, as in I'm an okay boomer. You know, it's not that bad.
Oh, well,
I
we
happen
won't
to be
take
an
so
older
much to it.
person, so what?
But it seems like the American politicians don't like the baby boomer generation because we're the largest generation to come into existence. Therefore, we're the most costly to the government.
Now look, that's true until now. You know what's happening right now as we speak. Right now, well, not as I'm speaking. Nobody does it when I'm talking.
Right. But you're right, with everybody
but
being
I have
on
to tell you,
lockdown, everybody being on lockdown, everybody's in between the sheets naked most of the time.
We will know exactly what people have been doing come the beginning
about
of
9
December.
months from now, there's going to be a global burst of population.
And look, there's been a number of people that have suggested what the next generation is going to be called. And I'm going to call them the bubble boomers.
The bubble boomers.
What else have they been doing?
We can call them the virus.
They probably will become a virus too. There'll be so many of them, they will.
We can call them the quarantines, right? Like when they're in the adolescence, they'll be the quarantines.
Yeah, the quarantines. We'll call their generation the quarantines.
The quarantines.
Yeah.
That'd be a cool.
No. You can't call them the Florentines. They sound like they're about to go on stage and do a little dance.
That's what about it.
Good evening. Please welcome, with their wonderful music, the Florentines. See? No, you can't. You can't. Because we're not looking forward to seeing. They're bubble boomers, man. They're nothing else. They're bubble boomers. Their mum and dad are. Right now, as we're talking, they should be listening. And they're not. They're going to see this in replay and go, hello.
Hello.
Bubble boomers. And here comes the man who coined that phrase for me to repeat, so it sounded like it was from me.
But good point,
Hey,
Michael.
Gary.
Good point. But until
He's
now,
the one that coined the bubble boomers.
Until then, we are the largest generation, and we're the most costly to the government. And we are the ones who changed everything for the old timers, because we brought the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. And now we're the burden to the Generation Xers because we won't die off and leave them our money in our houses.
Well, I do think, though, the problem with the generations of recent times, they had the most boring and ordinary names. Like, from way back in history, like way back, you had the Iron Age and you had the Bronze Age. I mean, at least they were something of substance, the Stone Age. And then you had things like the Corinthians and other fancy, glorious ages. The Chinese were great with it, the Ming Dynasty. Oh, what a lovely thing to be born in the Ming Dynasty. And what do we end up with? Boomers?
And Generation
We've got to be more creative, surely.
And the Generation Xers.
Yeah, we need some more creativity in naming a generation so that they can be proud of the generation that they've been born into.
Now, Michael looks annoyed at the moment. What's wrong, Michael? Are you lost in thought? We can't hear you, Michael. Your mute's on.
Yeah, my mute's on. I was just doing some
Look
research.
at your face like you just.
So I was gonna I want to play that song again. I want to get some music in here, lighten it up, real quick. And so I'm gonna play a couple songs off that set, and let their information get out there too. So and then we can see what y'all think about them because I like them. I saw Dakta Green. I didn't know you did.
Is the video going to be like this?
No,
is that the one that didn't work on my set?
No, I got this now.
Okay, good.
I learned quick, guys.
Okay. Oh, good. We're going to dance with you.
That's my way of making fun of the choppy movements of the last video.
It's a form of dance, isn't it? What's the dance called? The Frozens.
Yes. Just like the Talking Heads used to do, right?
Yeah. We're playing the Frozens. Well, we're going to play something now that we're going to watch.
I don't
Yep.
know, supposedly.
If you got an adjoining, if you got a second screen there, you need to put a second screen on so you can just click across to it. It's so much easier.
Yeah, well, I'm doing this on my phone.
Oh
I've been doing it on my phone. What do you mean?
A fun fact.
I went back to 5 or 6.
A fun
different
fact
phones.
here.
Yeah, go ahead.
5 or 6. A fun fact here is Palau is in this time zone, 4:20 p.m. in Palau. And Palau bud may arguably be one of the best bud on earth. So happy 420 to Palau.
Happy 420,
Happy
Palau.
420, Palau.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Well, the time
No,
zones
they're
don't
not.
just go
No,
every
they're
hour.
not.
The
No,
time
they're
zones
not.
go-
No, they're not. They're in the
Dakta-
same time zone as Japan.
Ah.
The next time zone's not till 20 past,
That's the
and
time.
it includes West Australia, middle through Indonesia, Philippines, and China. And I thought, in the middle of the night, your time, and getting late here, what better than to use the China? I have no idea how much cannabis gets smoked there, but I know it's legal and it grows wild in the fields. And I know that we've got a lot of Chinese people that become members of our club.
Cool.
So, how about,
Not to,
where did the
not
virus
to mention
start?
Russia.
Where did the
Russia.
virus start?
Well, supposedly.
Name the town that the virus started in. Well, it's
Supposedly in
being
China.
blamed at the moment. I don't want to argue conspiracies and bull. I don't want to talk about that. It's recognized to start in, what is it, Wutan? Is that the
Yes.
correct name?
I think
What they
that
calling
was
it?
Wutan.
Let us then, at the time, at 20 past the hour, when it's 20 past 4 in the whole of China, that we think of all the people that have died in Wuhan, and we think of whatever it is, the pain and hurt that they've gone through, but the rest of the world is thinking of them at 4:20 their time.
That works.
I'd like to be able to mentally think of that at
That works for
4:20.
me. And one thing that
Okay.
was brought to my attention that has not been included in the statistics for China is they list a number of people who have contracted the disease and the ones who have died from it. But then a reporter pointed out that they haven't pointed out the number of people who have disappeared. You know who have
Okay.
the number,
I